All right, we are live. What's up, y'all? I already see a few people in here. What's up, Joe Morris? What's up, 1-2 Ryan? All right, so today we got a special guest. Light couldn't be here today. He's out with some family out in South FLA. So, shout out to Light. But today you can probably see in the video name there. We have a very special guest, Kevin Dixie, and this is somebody that we met, from Hank Strange and from John Crump and all the cross viewership that we got. Thanks, Kimball. Appreciate that. Swamp Dog Armory, what's up, brother? What's up, Faith? Yeah, we get a lot of cross viewership, between like John Crump, Hank Strange, 2AEDU, and whatnot. So let's go ahead and welcome on our guest, KD, aka Kevin Dixie. Boom.
Hey man, I gotta say, boom. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being on with you tonight, man.
Hell yeah, man.
Appreciate this. I don't know about the special guest part, unless we're talking about like, doing crazy actions and saying crazy things, then I'm kind of special. But no, I appreciate the great intro. I'm happy to be with you guys tonight.
Yeah, man. That's all we do is we talk crazy shit on our stream here. What's up, Lego Man? What's up, Kimball? What's up, Swamp Dog? Swamp Dog, you probably seen Kevin Dixie a time or two. Thanakis, what's cracking player? So a lot of times when we bring a guest on, we do like a little intro, and then obviously they introduce themselves and talk. What's up, Gerchop? Everybody, make sure you acknowledge Gerchop. He gets sensitive. So this time I made a little video. Okay, I think it's important because we're talking about somebody that's deeply rooted within the 2A community, who's also an instructor, a trainer, firearm designer. Well, it's some shit you just got to see. Okay, so I made a little video, so we're about to rock out to that, give you a good picture of who Kevin Dixie is. And if y'all like this, then I may start doing this in the future. Oh, you know what? I'm going to have to, I always forget I'm going to have to take these joints out. All right. So as I said, Kevin Dixie is an instructor, trainer, deeply rooted within the 2A community. He did a lot of custom designs. Specifically, he's most well known for his custom boxes. Each one tells a story in its own unique way. There's I think that's the VP9. He's also been on every single stream and podcast that you can think of, from everything from Life Liberty with Iraq veteran 8888 and to the Gun Collective, to Hank Strange, John Crump. He's out there big time. There's your boy, TGC. That's funny. All right, let me get my headset back here. Close out of that. Boom. Okay. Very nice. Well, thank you, Thanakis. So hopefully, I'm not sure how well y'all could hear me. What's up, CRS? Thank you, CRS. I appreciate that. But now that I've given a little slideshow with a little dope background music, Kevin Dixie himself, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of, tell the people what you're about, what you do.
I really don't know how I'm supposed to do better than that video. Right.
Yeah, we could end it. Thanks for coming, guys. I'm just playing.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I guess I'll try to keep it brief. How much time we got? Can I just run my mouth? I don't
Honestly,
know.
we run for anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. So
Okay, I got a little time to run my mouth and a fully charged battery. So,
nice.
um, my name obviously is Kevin Dixie. Everybody calls me KD. I am from St. Louis, Missouri, born and raised. I have recently, within the last, well, about a year, right about a year now, recently transplanted to the Atlanta, Georgia area. But I am a St. Louis, Missouri kid, go Cards all day long, consistently. From the inner city of St. Louis and from the places that most people only hear about on the news. I am, I'm a firearms instructor. As far as guns go, I started my firearms journey off, if you will, in a professional manner with the St. Louis City Police Department. I spent 10 years in a division called prisoner processing, basically a jailer. Our position did include a lot of firearms training to do the duties that we had to do, protecting certain buildings and things like that. So I had the pleasure of going through academy training with firearms and do a lot of different things with guns. Before I even got to the PD, I was really interested in civil rights and human rights and bettering my neighborhood and challenging politicians, you know, without worried about the letter and about their name. I'm just talking about the person standing in front of me lying about the conditions that I see every day and how we can make them better. So I always wanted better, and I was always a mentor and a motivator to individuals around me, even as a young kid. I'm not saying it was great and something that you would want to put in a book, but I was trying. I just wanted people, my friends, I wanted them to stop dying, and I wanted us to change our environment because a death was it's a weekly thing for me, losing somebody that you knew. So I wanted that to change, and I realized that when I started operating guns in the right manner, professional manner rather, I was standing at work one day, and me and a few officers are standing there, and we got to talking, and we're talking about just stuff, man, just random guy stuff. We're just standing there talking, and next thing you know, we got to talking about the Second Amendment. Now I'm 21, maybe pushing 22 at this time, and we got to talking about the Second Amendment, which I was already well aware of, but not really aware of, right? Like I knew it, but I really didn't know it.
Mm.
And it was then that I realized that all the stories and all the atrocities that I speak about from a historical context, one thing that they all had in common rather, where people didn't have the ability to adequately protect themselves, right? And so we were standing there talking about it, and there were some guys that were pro-gun and some guys that were anti-gun, and we're standing there having a conversation about it. Then it hit me. It's like, you know what? Along with my civil rights journey, I have to make sure that gun rights are included because they are human rights, right? They are our rights.
Yeah.
So I had to make sure that those are included. And I'm like, well, you know what? Guess what? I have the experience coming from the streets. I've studied this stuff. I know about history. Well, guess what? Why don't I go ahead and take advantage of my opportunity being in law enforcement right now, get all this great firearms training and see where it goes. And from there, I began training individuals. I started No Other Choice firearms training after I learned up under a couple of great guys for a few years. I started No Other Choice firearms training, and I continued to reach out to my community to heal broken families, if you will, through a program that I eventually named called Aiming for the Truth. So I finally put a name to it. And Aiming for the Truth, what we do is focus around all the things that cause people to be violent. We're not blaming guns, bats, bricks, cars. We are going to deal with the environmental factors that cause people to be violent. We all know poverty breeds crime, so we have to address those things. So we're helping people deal with their mental illness. All right. One of my stories, and we'll talk about it, one of my stories of suicide really is what got the gun industry's attention. But we'll talk about mental illness. We talk about literacy skills. You know, how many grown men, man, still to this day that I know that can't read and write, right? They've learned how to like fake it, but they really can't read and write. So really getting those literacy skills, teaching young men how to tie ties, teaching them interview skills, so they can actually capitalize off some of the good things they want to do in life. Putting fathers back into the lives of their children. With the NFL, I ran a program with the NFL for a little while, and with that program and on my own, we were able to put about 120 dads back into the lives of their kids. Right. So now these are 120 children that have, even if they're not romantically back involved with mom, they are, involved in their kids' life. So now we got dads that have something to look forward to, and we got kids that have a father in their life. That's important, right? So those are the kind of things we do on Aiming for the Truth. And No Other Choice, the reason why the company's called that, and I know in our industry, we are used to murder, death, kill, tactical, you know what I mean? Like these really, really aggressive names. But when it came down to what I wanted to give to people, we all bring our different experience, right? If you are running a militia, you are probably going to go to some guy that's been in the sandbox and understands, how to take down armored vehicles and things like that, right? And so we all bring our own different experiences. I've always been on the American side of the fight, and I've always had the experience of what it's like to live in a rough area and what it's like to be part of law enforcement in that area. So that's what I bring. But it wasn't just the firearms training I wanted people to understand. Like, yeah, I can teach you how to run a gun. I can teach you about situational awareness. I can teach you how to defend yourself. That can be done. That is easy. I've studied this stuff for over 20 years. That can be done. However, we forget about the most important thing. And that's what happens when you make a mistake. That's what happens when you're overzealous, right? So what we don't talk about is we're always play these fantasies in our head, like, bad guy breaks in, Mozambique drill, right? El Presidente. We're going to, do the quickest build drill he's ever seen. My kinetic alignment is good. My cognitive training is on par. I understand neuroscience, and I really have these things down to a crisp. I understand my trigger reset, how to ride the wall. I understand how to slice a pie, bend corners, baseboard lighting, and all those things. And I understand those things and how to do them. It's like, cool. All right. Great. Awesome. What happens when you make a mistake, right? And what I would see, and what I'm trying to get individuals to understand, and what I was trying to get them to understand, is that I would see good people like me and you, right? Just everyday good folks, and they make a rash decision. They think self-defense is common sense, and it's anything but. And so people were so quick to, so to speak, jump the gun, that they would find themselves in legal hell, right? So I'm looking at, I'm the one that's dragging dad back while the family is out in the lobby crying and beating on the glass. And I mean, you might not see dad again for another 15, 20 years because of a mistake he made, what he thought he was doing the right thing, but really he wasn't, right? He never studied use of force laws. He never studied that stuff, right? So I wanted to make sure I brought a different spin to it. There are evils walking the earth. Like I have, if you name them, I have had conflict and had to deal with them all, both outside and inside the walls. Murderers, rapists, violent criminals, cartel members. Like literally, I've done it. I've done a little bit of it all. So I know there are, evil. There is evil walking the earth, but then there are also good people that are jumping the gun and finding themselves in the same situation as the evil folks, and that's not the way it's supposed to work. So all that to be said, I wanted to adapt the philosophy that I already had in life, right? Being a kid coming from the slums, no electricity, eating sugar sandwiches to make it, taking water and syrup to put into my cereal to kind of make some kind of milky concoction before I can eat, and all those things. I understood that every day I got up and I put my feet against the ground, I had no other choice but to be successful, to start snapping those generational curses and to do better. So that philosophy also, in a different way, applies to these individuals. It's like, man, you should be at a point of no other choice before you ever cause a negative impact to a human being, even if they deserve it. Extend God's grace and mercy to others that you would want to send it to you. Now, if they refuse to leave you alone and they put you at a point of no other choice, you will execute them with extreme prejudice because you will go home to your family, right? So want people to understand that balance so we can keep good people out of my hands, because we don't want good people in my hand, right? Yeah. And that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I set out to do. And from there, man, next thing you know, I blinked. I was just a local guy helping out police academy cadets that wanted to learn how to operate a gun before they went in. That's really the first people I started training. And I look up and I'm, training individuals, just everyday civilians. Then I LLC'd and taught my first class in my living room with a couple of buddies, and I blinked, and I've had the luxury of taking this message all across the country, been on, 12, 13 magazines now, a couple of internet TV shows, a couple of real TV shows. Like it's been a privilege to get out and live my American dream while trying to protect the values of this country and bring them to the hard conversations.
Yeah, man, that's I was pretty surprised, like because I first met you on the stream with Hank Strange. So like prior to that, I wasn't aware of you. I mean, it's not a bad thing, right? Like a lot of people don't know who the hell I am, right? But when I started after that, I started kind of looking into you and the firearms that you I mean, I'd say designed, right? Like you made a lot of changes to an existing firearm for the better. But the cases, the stories, everything that you had done, I started looking into it and I was like, damn, like he's been all over magazines, all over, you know, streams, podcasts, shows. Like I was blown away. So I appreciate you taking the time to jump into our little channel and tell your story.
Nah, man, I appreciate you giving me the time of day to even talk. You don't have to, right? Doesn't matter if it's a small YouTube podcast or a major news network. You're still taking the time to feature me, so I appreciate it.
Hell yeah. Just out of curiosity, what was it that made you leave? I wasn't aware that you were in law enforcement prior. What made you leave? Like, what was the biggest part of that decision?
I don't like being part of a corrupt system.
Mm.
And I don't mean corrupt just because of the police shootings we're seeing. I'm talking about from top to bottom. We're talking about the judges, the mayors, understanding how big business impacted the everyday citizen. And I just I didn't want to be part of something, even though I was a very, very small part, right? I just didn't want to be a part of something that I didn't believe in. And it is not because, and I tell people all the time, when, being a guy that didn't have a steady father figure or no father figure at all, being raised by a single mom and coming from the environment I came from, when I got to the police department, a lot of those men and women they mentored me like immediately, like, because I was a kid out here figuring it out, and I was on the right path, but I could easily be on the wrong path, and I could be pretty stubborn and pretty violent, right? So I had a lot of them mentor me, kind of put their hands on me, help me out. So I met a lot of good people there that I wouldn't be where I'm at now if they wouldn't have taken the time and invited me to their homes. And hey, when we get off work, you're coming with me and just helping me out understand life, right? Just helping me become a man in a lot of situations. And then there's this system. There's this system that is eating all of us alive. Nobody's safe. It's eating all of us alive, and it's not really doing right by the American people. And I really, really thought about it. I joined the PD, in 2000 or 2001, right up there. And then it hit me. The more and more I started studying, it hit me. And I don't think I've ever said it to anybody, but I'll say it here tonight for the first time. When I went in the early 2000s, I was still enforcing Joe Biden's 94 crime bill.
Mm.
I was a part of that.
Damn.
Like, really think about it, right? So I was the guy that he looked at on the TV and they called the super predator. Like, I was the kid watching that on the, remember in school when they had to push the TV out on the cart?
Yeah. Like,
I'm that guy. I'm that kid, right? And I'm in the inner city. I'm in one of the most violent cities in the country. Nothing to brag about, just a fact. And I'm going to an inner city high school at the time. I grew up. These are my people, right? And everybody here is not what you believe that they are. But yet I got to look at, the high-ranking political figures and the leaders of our country get on there and call me super predators and say they don't want me in school with their kids. And people start playing all this old video footage and all this different stuff. And I'm like, wow. And it didn't hit me, right? Because I'm a teenager. But a few short years later, I joined the PD, and then I like, fuck, I am part of the enforcement branch of this asshole's laws.
Damn. That's
the dude that I've been talking crap about since I remember. Like, everybody's just now starting to get Joe Biden. I've been talking about Joe Biden since I was a teenager because I remember them playing the clips with him, right? Even before I understood what a politician was, I knew I didn't like that dude, right? And it, like, shit, you blink and you don't realize, like, oh shit, now I'm actually taking some of that $13.5 billion, right? I am actually the guy that is a part of the money that was spent into these areas to negatively impact my people. But I joined the PD to do good, to make sure that I could mentor young men I was in a position of authority, right? So I could get my hands on people and I can get paid while doing it. And I can help. We can balance out the community, but help people so recidivism goes down and we start doing good work. And then, man, I blinked and I'm like, shit, you look at these mayors and you start looking at politics and you start understanding it. And you're like, I am a part of this, and know how much, and if you push back, you get put into a black hole, right? You get lost. Yeah. They put you in undesirable positions. So it gets bad. And I'm like, man, I can't wake up every day knowing that I'm actually literally enforcing the laws of subset laws or laws that mirror people that just a few short years ago were explaining to Americans just how violent I was. We literally have a law called, well, an act called the Unfair Sentencing Act, because the sentences were so aggressive. Like, you couldn't stand outside of my neighborhood without people literally picking you up off the street. It was called street demonstration in St. Louis, and I recently got educated that they changed it and they hit it up under something different. But literally, that's if you're standing outside, and I'm not making this up, but you could be standing outside, your presence was breaking the law. You simply being outside of your front door, standing on the sidewalk, was breaking the law, right? And I am a part of the individuals that are enforcing these unconstitutional laws, violating your Fourth Amendment right? Because the Second Amendment is not the only amendment that says shall not be. The Fourth Amendment also says shall not be without probable cause. Well, guess what?
No.
I'm enforcing a law that allows people to be standing outside of their home, being seen, put against, they call it stop and frisk in New York. They just called it street demonstration in St. Louis. Like, putting these people up against the vehicle, searching them, charging them with whatever they might find. And if you don't find anything, you still basically kidnap them. You put them in the back of a paddy wagon, you drag them down, we're taking their fingerprints, we're taking their photographs, and then we're charging them $100. And then if they don't pay that, now we have a warrant out for their arrest. And then when we catch them, now you have a record. So now it impacts your job and things like that, because we are keeping people to be the labor force because we don't want them to succeed. Like, it is so unfair. Redlining, gentrification, you start realizing that, and you looking at the mayor and you're looking at all this crap happening, and it's like, yo, I believe in balance, and I believe in a rule of law. I believe in people doing the right thing, but I no longer can be part of a system that is violating Americans' rights. I can't. And I walked away.
So I think, and I admire that, and a lot of people in chat are, saying the same thing. Every single thing is, thank you, Jacob. Every single thing is compromise. Every single thing between, the highest level, like the presidency, to, state, to the police, to, the enforcers, to everything is corrupt. And I have not learned anything different. As a matter of fact, over the last several hundreds and hundreds of years, I don't see anything but the degrading of the rule of law, right? Like, and it's so ironic that all of these people that we're talking about being corrupt and breaking constitutional laws, a constitutional, or your rights that are protected by the Constitution, are the same people that literally take an oath to defend and uphold the Constitution. It's just baffling. So I admire the fact that you left and the reason that you left. And I have not spoken to anyone, any former Leo, that has said anything like that. So I appreciate you being open, and you'll fit right in on our channel and our little community.
That's good to know. Yeah, you gotta go with your heart sometimes, man. I could have stayed there and went on to do great things as far as, but it would have been personal development. You know what I mean? It would have been about me. It wouldn't have been about the people. And so I believe that, when I just stepped away and no longer had a DSN, no longer had to have anybody be able to tell me what to do. Even when I'll be honest with you, I had about 4 years ago, I had a PD back up in St. Louis, our largest area PD. Ran into him at an event, and there was a lieutenant and a captain, and they looked at me and they were like, so where did you work? And I told them what I did, and they were like, oh, man, they're like, hold on, let me get this right. You work for St. Louis City. You are married. You got 2 kids. You're college educated. You're from the rough area, so you understand how to communicate with people. You're from that environment, and you're not in law enforcement. Now, at the time, you start thinking, even now, but go back even 4 years, like, understand politically how I am a perfect match for a law enforcement officer, right? Like, yes, we want you to be out there talking and engaging with individuals. And I turned them down. All right. I talked to my family about it. I'm like, look, I got a chance to go to, St. Louis County, which is our largest and well-funded PD. And I'm like, I got a chance to go over here, guys. Is it going to include this? Dad to be gone these long days. I will no longer be in a building. I will be on the streets every day. I'll be doing different stuff, and they're going to want to use me for community outreach work. And how do you guys feel? And my family said no. And it was my son who was the first person to be like, no. And so I thought about it even more, and I'm like, you know what, man? All this is going to be is me going right back out, running right back into the same stuff that I said I wanted to not be involved in. So I'm like, you know what? I turned the guys down. I'm like, many blessings to you. I wish you guys nothing but the best. If you want me to come in and still help you with community outreach and reaching people and helping relationships and build those relationships between community and law enforcement, I'll do it for free. You don't even have to pay me. Just call me. Here's my card. Call me for anything that you might need, because we need that relationship to be healthy. And we need everybody to be held accountable, but I'm going to have to politely decline. And you know what? That's great, because you know what I would have gave up? My social media presence, because you can't have one. You know, so now I'm impacting, and I can't reach the millions of Americans I have reached.
Yeah.
If I would have made that decision. So I am better being a free agent, being able to say and do whatever I want.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's huge. I've been in I know this isn't about me, but just to kind of share something similarly, my job for about 5 years, I was hired to run a few different companies, and the individual that I became, I realized that I was compromising on some of my morals while I was in those different roles. And in doing that, you know, the focus becomes like, you know, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this for my family. And I didn't even really truly consult at that level with my family. At the time I like, when that started, we had just gotten pregnant. But anyway, as time went on, you know, when COVID hit, after being there about 5 years, ended up leaving, like, mutually, and I kind of felt like I lost something. But through that, man, the growth and development, and just discovering like who I am, and making the commitment to myself that I will never compromise myself or any of my morals ever again for money, especially money, because money is something that I you know, yeah, I'm not a fan of money. It's manipulation, and it's but that's a whole nother conversation. But I feel you, and good for you for you know, for doing that and taking a stand, and look where you are now.
Yeah, man. And ditto to you, right? It still takes courage, it takes integrity, right? And it takes really reflecting on oneself about, hey, my manhood, my integrity, my morals, and my values are more important than anything else. And sometimes we have to make the hard decision, whether it's corporate America or law enforcement, whatever it is. Sometimes we got to walk away. So ditto on the kudos to you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. So I'm curious about well, a few different things, but two specifically. So we could kind of go in two different directions now. I definitely want to talk about the unique firearms and the unique cases and the stories. I think that's something that is definitely, it's what you're known for, right? Thank you, Thanakis. Appalachian Gunrunner says, KD is something else. It took me a while to understand him, but once I did, I respect him and feel he is a much needed presence in the 2A community. That's what's up, man.
Yeah, big love, man. Appalachian is a good dude. I've never talked to him, but I do know the name from chats and stuff like that, and that's cool, man, because I know I'm an acquired taste, right? And I come in, I'm bullyish. I come in strong-headed, but I mean well. So thank you for hanging in there with me and building and appreciating my presence, man. And I appreciate you taking time to make the comment. It's all love, brother. It's never about beef. It's all about love. That's all it is.
Oh yeah, it's interesting too. So shout out to The End Is Near, Beware. He actually was the one that was like blowing Lola up, like, you need to get with DLD. You need to get with DLD. This dude Dark is, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he kept like hammering them, and they finally responded, and he linked us up. And then John Crump kind of like co-signed, like, yeah, like Dark is my man. Like, you know, he's good people. Like, you know, you should do a show with him. Had it not been for The End Is Near, Beware, being so persistent in wanting us to connect with Hank Strange and John Crump, of course, I wouldn't have been on Hank Strange's show, and I wouldn't have met KD. So thank you. He said, I learned a whole lot more in the last 20 minutes about Kevin than all the Hank Strange streams, but I could have missed some as well. So I just think
Oh yeah, we've talked a lot on there, but yeah, it's I've shared a ton on Hanks, and Hank, 2-hour shows, man, you can lose a whole lot of information. You never know when you're gonna say what on there. But I appreciate you listening for the 20 minutes so far on the show. That's awesome.
Hell yeah. So yeah, one of the things I want to discuss is definitely the guns and the cases and the stories. I think that's dope. I would love to learn more about the community outreach. I think that's something that's important. But also kind of your story and just kind of getting into, I know you said it's like a blink, but getting into the Second Amendment community. I know we kind of joked about it, like that's like saying like the shovel community. I remember because they're tools, right? Everyone should own them. It's a God-given liberty that's protected by the Constitution. But your journey into the world of the gun world, the gun scene, the whatever you want to call it.
All right. I think so. I think the thing that would be wrong of me not to mention is to kind of give everybody a glimpse into my mentality before I even got here. So my first encounter, like we all have our different, first encounters with a gun, right? Some is hunting with dad or shooting cans or, whatever, right? Everybody's got their own thing.
Yeah.
Well, outside of the actual just seeing guns used in different manners in my environment, the first time I actually handled a gun, like it was in control of it, I was 13, and one of my buddies, he lives about a quarter block up the street, and he comes down to my house, and he looks at me, he's like, "You wanna come to my house and do something?" And you know how your friends have like this devious look in their eyes?
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yes, whatever this is, yeah, yes, I want to go do it, right?" Yeah. So we run up to his house, and his parents weren't home, and they had a little Tomcat back there, and we were, playing with it. Like every gun, think of a gun rule, we broke it, and think of gun rules that haven't been thought of yet, and we broke them. We broke all of them, trying to figure out this gun. And we get it to the back porch, and we finally figure it out, and we shoot it, right? And we shoot it the first time, and like my fucking adrenaline is pumping so hard, right?
Was it one of the 25s
I'm not worried about
or the 32s?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think that I believe that one was I think it was a 32 ACP, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
A long time ago, but I think that was the cartridge. And we shoot it, and that's great. And then we shoot it again. Now we're not worried about the cops. Cops don't come in my neighborhood, so we're not even worried about that. So after we get done doing what mischievous children do, we try to clean up our mess. Like I even thought it would be a great idea to take the shell casings, like put them back in the box, like they wouldn't notice that the bullet was like. We make a mistake and do what kids do. So I go home. The next day, I happen to be talking. One of my neighbors, he local handyman, never really talked to me a lot. But I was outside and I was doing something. And I don't know what sparked him to tell me. Maybe he had been watching me for a while, and I've never gotten a real good answer for this. But he was like, "Hey, when you go to school, I want you to talk to your counselor and just tell them you want to talk to someone. That's all I want you to say." I'm like, "Whatever, creepy old handyman on the block." He's like, "No, do it." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I go to school, and I go into the counselor's office, and we start having a conversation. And I just told the counselor what my neighbor said. And the counselor was smart enough to know that some grown man just didn't tell you that for any reason. So he kept digging, right? Mm-hmm. And eventually it led to me going to see a therapist. And it was discovered that I was clinically depressed, and I also had clinical anxiety, like really, really bad. And so that's why I was violent. Like fighting was nothing. Violence, it wasn't even necessarily I was prone to it. Hold on one second.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, baby. I'm sorry. We got my sweetheart.
Yeah, go ahead. Take care.
Put the computer back.
Put the computer back. Okay, you go in your room. Okay, love you.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry. My little princess. She doesn't stop for anything. So when I was diagnosed, and this is coming from a kid who was, like I said, my mother was 14 when I took my first breath, right? That's how young she was. So she had a lot to try to figure out. She was a kid herself. I've been in foster care, molested and raped in foster care, abused, grew up in crime-ridden areas. Mom did her best trying to make it, but I was sleeping on gas station counters. I just had a hell of a life. And so it all caught up, right? But this is a long time ago. We didn't really take mental health
Yeah.
serious,
It
right?
was
It wasn't a thing.
completely different back then.
Yeah, and so it was like, all right, man, cool. I went and so we started the treatment. I never took medication though. That's the one thing I refused. I wasn't taking no pills. I knew back then something about that. Like, let me just talk my problems out. So the reason that the gun is important when it comes to that is that I kept having these thoughts about that gun, right? And it was not the mechanical aspects of the gun. It wasn't, oh my God, a gun, I want to go shoot another one. I wanted to commit suicide. I was fantasizing about getting that gun before I can end all this pain. That was my first interaction with a firearm, was that it can make all the pain and depression and memories of molestation and rape and foster care and being locked in basements and being forced to put Vaseline on a grown man at 4 or 5 years old, being forced to watch him molest another kid that was a year or two older than me and make me like stand there and make me and the boy like touch it. Like it was all kind of detrimental stuff. His mom making us clip her toenails and beating us with extension cords and crazy mess. Like, imagine trying to be a kid running from rape and molestation from a grown man, and his mother is the one that holds the door closed so you can't get out.
Damn.
So my childhood was, and then put that same kid in a violent, everyday lifestyle.
Yeah.
So crazy. And that's why I tell people now, like, when they're like, oh, I'm prone to violence, I'm like, dude, you have no fucking idea what violence is. It's like, you have no idea, but it's cool. And so the gun was just a way to make, man, you know what, this can go away. They're not having like a father figure. They didn't even have to be dad, like a good uncle or somebody to talk to, without having that. And a young mother, like it was crazy. So anyway, I went, my journey in life continued. I beat and I defeated. I've been totally clear of any signs of depression and anxiety, even at a very minute level, for right around, I think I'm celebrating, I said 10 years once and I was wrong. I'm closer to 13, 14 years sober is what we call it, right? I'm not, not even being like everything's cool, like I'm good. But it was a fight. And then obviously by the time I got to the PD, I was at a level I could operate in normal society and be okay. So when I went through that whole journey with going with the PD, and we talked about that and how the Second Amendment became important to me. When I got into the Second Amendment community, when I LLC my business, only thing I would share on Facebook was local crime stories to get people to be serious about training. You never saw my face or anything. Excuse me. It was just about the local crime stories and letting people know, like, hey, this is why training is important. This is why you should come train with me. Whether you want to just learn to shoot guns, get your concealed carry permit, whatever the case may be, come train with me. Even then, I was continuing to work with other guys so I can continue to increase my skill level. I've always been a student first type of guy. Well, one day I put up a video, and that video, I went out to Utah to do a TV show. I had won a spot on somehow to do a TV show called Beyond Breaking. And then you can even YouTube it now. It's Carbon TV Beyond Breaking. And I got called out there to do a force on force class, right? So we're high up in elevation, it's Utah. So we're high up in elevation. It's 16 degrees outside, and I'm rumbling with 2 former Marine recon dudes that also happen to be UFC fighters. So imagine doing force on force with them, right?
Yeah.
So
was
I'm having
fun. Like guns with ammunition as well?
Oh yeah. UTM rounds and stuff. Yeah, we were having a good time, man. Good time.
Nice.
And I told people, like, this is what I am all about the training, right? I'm not just a guy that's telling you I'm a trainer. Like, this is what I do. So I was there, man, and I'm going to be honest with you. While I was there, it was the first day, I got really, really inspired. Like, I just got through getting, there's a car scene where I'm in like an old Caprice, and me and this guy, we get to fighting it out or whatever, because it's a carjacking scenario. We get to fighting it out. And after I got done with that scene, I got back to the hotel, and I just said, you know what? I'm not doing my immediate community any services, because I'm not telling them what this is like. Only thing I'm highlighting to them is violence. I'm only sharing a local news story and say, come train with me. Now, once you get into the class, then you get to really know me and you get to see my philosophy. But I'm like, if I can put this stuff out to show them violence, why can't? Is there another motivating factor to this? And I said, absolutely it is, right? Because training is fun and learning how to defend your life is fun, and guns can be fun, even if you don't bring up the self-defense aspect. So I just I put my phone in a tree limb in the back of the hotel, a little tree, and I put it in the tree limb to brace it. Yeah. And I hit record, and one of the first videos I put up was, it's okay to be a black man with a gun. right? And I just talked about it, and I just wanted people to know, like, this is absolutely for you. Enough of the brainwashing BS we've been told, you know, because when I was a kid, we were told that it was illegal for black people to own guns, like
Damn.
factually, and then people still believe that to this day because that's what we were told. Like, it is illegal for you to be in possession of a firearm, right? Even though that wasn't the case, but it kind of was the case because of laws, but they were lying. So now it's breaking that stigma that's been fed for 30, 40 years, right? Now I'm gonna chip away at that. And I went to a NRA show shortly after that, and I was sitting at a table. I was at a James Yeager party, and I'm sitting at a table, and I had met James, and we had chopped it up a couple of times, and he liked what I had to say, so he invited me back to his party. And I'm sitting there at a table, and I got a group of individuals around me that asked me a question, and I get real passionate, and I really started getting into it. And we're at a party. Next thing I know, it's a huge crowd around me, and one of the gentlemen around me was Darren Lasort, which is a producer over at NRA TV, and he was like, "Yeah, we are going to bring you on NRA TV, right?" And I'm like, even though I've done these other TV shows and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, shut up, man. You're not gonna bring me on no damn NRA TV. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like, sure, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Now 2 weeks later, I get the phone call, and next thing you know, I'm sitting on one of New Orleans shows, right?
Damn.
And so I did New Orleans show, and then I did Dana Lash's show, and then I did Grant Stinchfield, and the list went on. And when I got on that platform, other platforms wanted to have me on. Then it's big spiral in the podcast networks happen, and then magazines happen, and then next thing you know, they're bringing me back on NRA TV because I was a fan favorite. So we're doing like investigative interviews and all kind of stuff. Like, I was on NRA. You would think I was one of the personalities on NRA TV at the time when it was really booming. So that was great. And that kind of, next thing you know, you're seeing me in videos with everybody, man. Yeager, Iraq veteran, like you like, it's everywhere. You know, you'll see me in pictures with different people, Mac and all these kind of people. And it was just like, yo, I'm just bringing who I am, who I've always been since I was a kid trying to figure out life. And I bring my passion, everything I care about. And so it started, man, with me putting a cell phone and a branch of a TV in the middle of Utah saying, yeah, fuck the bullshit. We're about to break these barriers down. This is absolutely for you, and you absolutely should do it. And the next thing you know, I'm front and center on the cover of Time magazine, right? So yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Damn. Okay, so when I was looking stuff up, I did see the Time magazine, and I didn't know if that was legit or not. So you were actually on the cover of Time magazine?
Yeah, legit. That is legit. Even if you go to if you Google Time magazine guns in America, it's actually a really cool thing they have going. So that cover, you can actually take your mouse, and when you move it, you can see all the people moving. Like, it's an interactive mural. You can see all the people moving. Time Guns in America.
Hold up.
So that mural is pretty interesting. There were roughly, I think, 245 or 250 of us on the cover, and it was split between anti-gun and pro-gun, and everyone had 3 minutes. I'm sorry, everyone had 3 minutes to actually give audio to their experiences. Now, obviously, if I'm talking to a bunch of gun guys, I say Time magazine, you're like, don't trust them, right? Like, why would we? Don't trust them. Well, after you did your photo shoot, they actually taped 3 questions to a table in front of you, right? So everyone had the same questions. Yeah, so there's the cover. And then if you go to the word guns and look right above it, I'm smack dab in the middle of the cover on top of the table.
Right there.
And so that's me standing next to the St. Louis City Circuit Attorney. So yeah, I don't even know if you can zoom in on the thing, but and you got other people in there, Corinne Mosier, Maj Therese on there. There's a couple other people scattered around in the background. Mike Brown's mother. Like, there's a lot of different people that are just bringing different perspectives about how they feel about guns. So they wanted to have a balanced conversation. And so when I got the phone call, like, hey, we think you ought to hook up with Time by a local gun group, they gave me the girl's number. I called her, and she's like, yeah, we've been hearing great things about you. 6 people referred you to us when we called them. And so they interview me over the phone. It's like, yep, absolutely. We want you to come in. I go in. We do the photo shoot, but then they give you 3 minutes to answer these 3 questions, in fairness, that were taped to the table. The audio guy did not interview you. He's like, hey, my name is Bill. I'm just here to be the audio guy. The tables are taped to the question. You got 3 minutes, go answer the questions. And that's for pro-gun, anti-gun, no matter what your viewpoint was. Well, I get in there and I go 26 minutes. And I wasn't moving until I got everything out. And this guy who self-identified, he self-identified as a New York liberal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was in the corner in tears, like literal tears. And his words to me were, I've never heard a story like that, and I've never heard guns be talked about in that manner. So it led to them listening to the audio. So they picked me and put me at the top of the table because of the audio I gave, because of my stance and what I represented. So that was really cool. So yeah, that's real. And after they listened to my audio and listened to my perspective, that's why they put me at the top of the table.
Oh, damn. So I'm actually trying to get a good picture of the cover. Did you know that they have an entire mural of it at the Cody Firearms Museum?
Yes, and that's another museum we're gonna submit the actual gun to as well.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna get them to take a gun. They don't really have a choice. Like, why would they turn down a free gun anyway? So they're gonna get that gun because that mural is in the museum, and it only makes sense for the gun to be there as well. Yep, there's a mural.
And that's you right there. I don't know if you can see the cursor on the screen share, but I can't really zoom in too well. It zooms everything else except the picture. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, so my bad.
Oh no, it's all good, man. Yeah, but that was surreal, right? When I saw that it got submitted to the museum, I'm like, oh shit, my picture's in the museum, right? And it's I would be cool if I was in the upper right hand corner, but the fact that they're telling me, no, we listened to what you had to say, and they wanted you front and center. Out of all 250, they like, no, you need to be at the top of the table, front and center. Great. Yeah. And then you mean it's humbling, man. You're talking about a kid trying to figure out how to get water and syrup to eat cornflakes, and you blink and you look up in New York, and you're on the side of buildings in New York. You're on billboards. When we looked at Time magazine, Michael Jackson was on the cover of it, right? Like, this is back when. Yeah, and you know how humbling it was for my mom to be trying to figure out how to, at 14 years old, how to raise a kid that's been through hell, and she was going through hell and working all these different type of jobs, but we never gave up. For her to blink and look up and be like, holy shit, my son, for a good reason, is on the cover of Time magazine. Like that was monumental for me and my family. Monumental.
Yeah, man. That's huge. That's I could see something like that giving you some serious fuel and purpose. Aside from the other like whys in your life, right? Like we all have a why. Typically it's family, but a lot of times it's to achieve something. And it could be an impact on your community, like you mentioned, or that's dope though, man. That's huge. And from there, like, what was the next step for you?
So after as all that was happening, and this was, I'll be very, very honest, and it's kind of funny too. So I am blessed to have a lot of good friends, right? Like in my real life before I ever got on the internets, and then some good dudes, some good quality people I met from this journey, right? Like good salt of the earth people. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting back and I'm like, I got all these buddies now, and I'm considered to be a voice, and I'm recognized in rooms, and like people stopping me at restaurants and shit, and like, oh my God, are you KD? Can I get an autograph? I'm like, what? Are you trying to stab me? Like what is this? Autograph? You know what I mean? Like, the hell are you talking about, right? But being really humble, and I'm like, all right, this is cool, this is great. So I just went ahead and I kept doing me, and then I put up a meme, and this all started with a meme. So talking about this kind of leads over into what happened with the gun. Mm-hmm. Everybody, all you guys listening, and even yourself, you remember that gun. Like you've been shooting guns, but then it was this one particular one. It was something about it. You just thought about it all the time. It just worked well with you. It's like they almost made it for you. That gun. Everybody's got like that gun, right? Yeah, yeah. And that gun for me was the HK-VP9. Right?
That's so crazy. One of my questions is why the VP9? anyone else would have done a Glock. So I admire the fact that you went through with your heart. What's up, Flying Rich?
Yeah, man. When I picked up the firearm, and the first gun that I shot that made me like fall in love with guns, like guns, was when I was with the HRT team back in St. Louis, and they had this thing called an MP5.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, what the fuck is this? You slapped the thing? Oh, this is great, right? And it was it was a machine gun and shit. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
So Heckler and Koch, I always remembered that. Then I got my hands on a BP9 and I picked it up. I'm like, yeah, I got pretty, look at the size of my face, look at the size of my hands. I got pretty large hands.
Yeah.
So that gun just worked. The more angled frame, the deeper cut for the webbing of the hand, like it just worked. The swells, it just worked. The back strap was perfect. It just worked. It was well balanced. I just really liked it.
Full stock or collapsible stock or side folding?
On the MP5?
Yeah, what's your preference?
Well, that one was a full stock. My preference would be a side folder.
Okay.
If I could. Just so I can squeeze in the small spaces. But I've probably, no lie, man, just being totally upfront, before I even thought about doing anything with that platform, I know, and I'm being generous. Well, I'm not being generous. I'm actually probably being a little bit restrictive. 50, 60,000 rounds through that platform. Damn. That's all I shot. The HKVP, like that was the gun that I ran, right?
Oh, not the MP5, the VP9.
The VP9, I'm sorry. Yeah, with the VP9. Damn. So I knew that gun. I knew what I liked and what I didn't like, right? Like there's always going to be something that you wish you could change. So I had been working on kind of a behind the scenes one for me, right? Not for you, but for me. I just wanted one for myself that I wanted to change up. So I was real good friends with a company called Midwest Cerakote. The former owner of it is a brilliant engineer. His name is John. He's a brilliant engineer. Still is an engineer to this day, owns a large engineering firm that operates internationally. And John is also a gun guy. And so we would talk, we would exchange ideas and things like that. And he had all the great computer programs to show me the balance of the slide and weight reduction. And so I was just going to make this one-on-one thing for me. And so as everything grew, I made a meme. Now, this is after Coleon Noir released his Advocate. And then my buddy Ken Scott, Provectus Group, released his gun called the Provectus Elite. And it was on the Smith & Wesson platform. So I put up a meme. You know that meme of Pablo Escobar standing in a pool looking off into the distance?
Yeah.
Right. So I put up a meme, and the meme said, when all your friends have signature guns and you don't. Right. And then below it, I went on to talk about their guns and why you should go support their guns. And so it was meant to be a funny, but hey, really, you should go support these guys and their firearms.
Yeah.
Well, a guy named Wayne Hammer, who's a good buddy of mine, he works for Microtech now. Wayne hit me up and he was like, because Wayne met me, he loved what my mission was about. We had met at SHOT Show. And so he hopped in my DM and he was like, long story short, he was like, you were so full of shit. Like he was not holding back with me. I'm like, what is your problem, dude? He's like, no, man, you full of shit. You should absolutely put a gun out. And I'm like, you know what, man? I'm not one of these guys that's going to be like, oh, I got a little bit of popularity. Let me put out a gun, right? Like, no, I'm going to celebrate my friends and what they're doing, and I'm fine. And he was like, yeah, you're full of shit. I was like, okay. Well, I said, I'm not going to do it unless it's something heartfelt, right? I've been working on this VP9 design for a couple of years, but I'm not going to do it unless it's heartfelt. Now, Wayne is also a big fan of the VP9 platform, so he understands the gun too. And so does Larry with J&L Machining, who will make sense in a moment, and then Pete with Carolina Custom Foam. So I prayed about it, and I'm like, yo, like, if this doesn't come to me, if there's not something in me that can do something different, I'm not going to do it, because I'm not doing it just to sell a gun. Like, it's not important. And then it hit me. I was thinking about a lot of the historical stories that I talk about, that I bring to people's attention, that are uncomfortable, right? It brings up a lot of race. It brings up a lot of factual occurrences, and it's uncomfortable for a lot of people to learn about. And it's uncomfortable for them to learn about things that are currently still happening today that aren't just as obvious or as violent. But you have to understand where things started and what we have dealt with in history. And I'm like, well, I start thinking about the atrocities that have happened, and then I start thinking about gun control. I'm like, let me really think about this, like really. And I really sat down, man, for a few days, when I wasn't doing something with the family. And I was like, yeah, I know all this stuff. I can tell you about the slave codes. I know how gun control was started. And it's factual. It's not hyperbole. It was started to control black folks, like, period. Like, that's what the law said, right? Like, okay, cool. I get that. I understand that. I've researched that. And I've talked about that till I'm blue in the face. But what happened?
I'm sorry, real quick. So that has been mentioned a lot, but there you go, Flying Rich. He said no cigar. So
Right.
That's one thing that I don't know. Like, help educate me on that. So what is there something specifically pointing to, like factually, that it was specifically to keep blacks, slaves, like keeping them from being armed?
Yeah, so they were called the black codes. So, and some people call them the slave codes. You can find them written in different ways, but the point would be the same. So, before 1776, we had gun control laws in this country before it was even a country, right? But when there were colonies, we had gun control laws. The slave codes would say things like, and I believe this was out of Louisiana. And I'm paraphrasing it. I used to know it verbatim, but one particular slave code in the 1600s stated that if a black was caught with anything that could be used as a weapon, and it used a cane as an example in the code rather. If a black was caught with anything that could be used as a weapon outside of a white's permission, basically your slave master, outside of a white's permission, then he can be killed on the spot by civilian or law enforcement, and that's it. Because you weren't allowed to own anything that can be used as a weapon. So Lord forbid you have a gun.
Damn.
So yeah, these are factual slave codes that existed. So it was a strategy to make sure that you're doing wrong by enslaving people. And if they get guns and if they get weapons and they learn how to use them, you're gonna have a problem
against you. Yeah.
Right. So that's why those laws came out
familiar.
so fast. They didn't want that. So I like to tell people, like, even in 1776, so that was back in the 1600s. But even in 1776, when America was celebrating its independence from Britain, that's great, right? And I never knock 1776. I tell people all the time, like, 1776 is monumental because you don't know what we will be and where we will be today if that didn't happen. What if this was still under British rule? Like, what would the world be like? I don't know, and I can imagine it wouldn't be as good. I tell you that. So my whole thing was, we still have to appreciate 1776. It isn't something you can gloss over. It's very monumental. However, in 1776, what people just need to take your emotions out of it. What people need to realize that in 1776, America gained its freedom from Britain. People like me were still trying to gain their freedom from America.
Damn.
Think about it. That's
pretty crazy.
Right? So there were still gun laws on the books when America gained its independence, even when in 1792, when the Second Amendment was ratified, I still couldn't own guns.
Damn.
So even the original writing of the Second Amendment was not for me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess shit for 100 years.
Yeah. 1865, the great state of Tennessee changed the state constitution. And it had in the provision dealing with guns in our state constitution really it sounded a lot like the Second Amendment. They pretty much mimicked the Second Amendment, which is cool, right? Like, I wish every state would just write their damn constitution like that. It'd make it a lot simpler, right?
I know,
so Tennessee writes their state constitution to essentially mimic the wording of the Second Amendment. Well, in 1865, they ratified their state constitution to read from basically all free men have the right to keep and bear arms. And in 1865, this is after 1776, they ratified their constitution to read all white men have the right to keep and bear arms.
Wow. Damn.
So when you really start getting into it in gun laws in 1898, was it 1898 or was it 1873? I might have my days kind of crossed. I have dyslexia a little bit. I get mixing stuff up, but I believe it was 1873, late 1800s, to be fair. Florida. Florida, right, which is the gunshine state, right? People give Florida this great reputation. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Florida wrote a law that stated because of all the black laborers that were coming into the state of Florida, so it was an influx of black laborers, people coming to work, and so Florida got panicked because a lot of black people were coming to the state of Florida. So they wrote a law certain laws on a state level and then laws on different county levels to state that it was illegal for black people to own firearms. So these black laborers can come, but they cannot own guns, right? So when you look at the Rosewood, Florida murder in 1923, the massacre in Rosewood, Florida, where hundreds of black people were killed by literally, this is not hyperbole, by literally the Ku Klux Klan, because a woman named Fannie Taylor was married. She stayed in the neighboring town called Sumner, Florida, next to Rosewood, Florida. Now, Rosewood was predominantly black. Sumner was predominantly white, but the communities essentially got along. It wasn't a big problem, right? Everybody kind of minded their own business and everybody was friends. Well, Fannie Taylor was having an affair on her husband. And Fannie was a white woman and her husband was a white man, obviously. She was having an affair on her husband with one of his coworkers. Well, her and her lover got into some type of tiff and her lover beat her up. So when her husband got home, she couldn't explain to her husband that I was sleeping with your coworker and we got into a fight. Right. So she said that a black guy came in the house and sexually assaulted her. So the husband, the local sheriff, they start a posse and they're going to look for this black guy that had escaped off a local chain gang. They believe he's the one that did it. So they're going to go looking for him. Well, that posse that went to look for one man turned into an out of control mob. The husband called to Gainesville, Florida, which is about a 45-minute drive. And you can see me standing in front of the Rosewood sign, like in recent history. I went to Rosewood and I actually made the drive from Rosewood to Gainesville. I drove it so I could make sure the timing was right and to go see Hank Strange because that's where he lives. So I go there and I'm looking and I'm imagining all this happening. And the husband calls to Gainesville where the Ku Klux Klan is having a rally. They're literally having a rally for whatever reason in Gainesville. And it's 500 of them there. So they call over to Gainesville and get the Klan to come assist them. The Klan then comes in, the sheriff loses control. We go from a posse to a mob. The sheriff then is trying to now help black people escape because the mob's out of control. They kill lots of people, slaughter them.
Yeah, it was like a massacre.
Erase Rosewood. Yeah, it was a massacre. Oh, absolutely. And history books will tell you upwards of like a dozen people. The families tell you they lost hundreds of family members.
Yes,
and I believe
the hearing 13, but
yeah, that's not a real number.
Yeah, there's other accounting of the stories from families and from other family members that they've passed away, right? So their kids, grandkids are talking about like dozens and dozens and dozens of community members that were murdered, hung, lynched, mutilated in public, literally mutilated. Yeah,
you doesn't have your genitalia cut off and stuffed in your mouth.
Yep,
that was a real thing.
Say it, but yeah, I mean, damn. Sorry, my bad.
That was in 1923. So the history books will always tell you these stories. And just to give anybody an example that wants to believe the books, remember these incidents were incidents America wanted to cover up. They didn't want you to know about. One. So why would I give you the real number when I don't even want you to know? Two, if you compare Rosewood was in 1923, Tulsa, Oklahoma, that massacre, Black Wall Street, was in 1921. And we are just now in recent history uncovering the mass graves. So they were like, oh, only 20 something people got killed. Well, all the historical accounts is that they had boxcars full of dead bodies, dragging people and dumping them in these holes somewhere. And people did, credit to them. They spent years investigating, talking to witnesses and survivors. They finally tracked them down and we're just now discovering all the mass graves and pulling the bodies out. Like
currently, right now.
Like recent history, yes. Like within the last 4 or 5 years.
Damn.
So these are things that, it's just, look, you didn't do it. I didn't do it. It is what it is, right? It happened and we have to address it. So Florida, Rosewood was no different. Well, it was in 1941 that a judge in Florida finally said, you know what? This law is basically unconstitutional because it is limiting black people from owning guns. So they overturned those laws in 1941, even though there were still other laws, they just overturned that one. In 1941, then in 1993, 1994, Florida was the first state in U.S. history to pay survivors of a massacre for their failure to protect them. So Florida paid out dividends to the family.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they really adequately couldn't defend themselves thanks to gun laws, right? And I'm not saying they would have won that fight anyway, but I'll tell you what, I might lose a fight, but you're coming with me.
Yeah. I'm
So,
bringing at least a
you know,
few
that's
with
my
me.
attitude.
Yeah.
So it would have been good to have had the means. So, you know, understanding those stories and talking about those things and being able to factually break them down. I don't have to yell emotionally. I can just tell you what factually happened. And so understanding that and how gun laws help with that, literally having gun laws on a book. So what I like to tell Americans is that, yes, when it comes to guns, well, a lot of times we see 1776 on the shirt. Cool. I'm not mad at that. That's a very important, relevant date in history, right? I get it. I absolutely get it. But you have to understand, everybody doesn't align themselves with 1776 equaling freedom.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, cool. We get it from a country standpoint. But imagine somebody hitting you upside the head, telling you to keep working for free. And you're looking up and everybody else is celebrating their independence, but your ass is still chained up.
Damn. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
some real shit.
It's just facts, man. Like it's just facts. So we have to, and that was another reason that the community, you know, the Second Amendment community was missing aligning with, let's just call it what it is, aligning with the Black Americans. Like, we understand from a political standpoint, until recent history, where a lot of political powers want to go after Hispanics as well. You know, for a long time there was just, you know, if it wasn't white America, the minority group you wanted was Black Americans, right? You wanted, so it was always, you know, lying to people and deceiving them to get their voting power, right? Which is still occurring to this day. Yep. So when we see that and people start talking about guns, well, people that actually are saying the right things, they just don't have all the information, are like, dude, 1776, you know, understand this is important for your freedom and your country. And now we have always convinced people that they should go out and do their own research, right? COVID, do your own research. Politics, do your own research, right? Do your own research. So what happens is people like me have been screaming to people for a long time about doing their research on individual things. So what will happen is now people are doing a little bit of research and they're going with, well, shit, you know what's going to reach them more? Instead of you saying 1776, say 1865, say 1921, 1923, 1917. These incidents are going to hit home to this demographic of people. Your message is still the same, freedom, right? Yeah. But everybody's not going to relate to that date the same. There are other dates in history that they're going to be closely related to because of things that have happened when they did their research about what the government has done to them. So that's why I want to give everybody information, not to say one struggle is better than the other, but I do have a story. My ancestors did go through some things and I want to talk about them. And it's no different than a guy talking about his great-great-granddad being in a Revolutionary War. Well, I can damn sure talk about how the people that look like me were being slaughtered and killed up into the 1940s in this country without blinking an eye. I mean, we got to remember, man, like, and if some of this stuff is just hard conversation for Americans to have, but it's needed. America is what, 245 years old?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
So if America is, 200, let's round it up. You know, she's had, 250 years, give or take, to get it together, right? America has made a shit ton of mistakes. She is flawed. She has tons of growth. She's also a beacon of hope. There is no better nation in the world than America. It's just not, right? So understanding that, we have to also understand to love someone or something is to truly know them. We have to get to the conversation that we're being real. Now, this does not exclude personal accountability for every human being that can breathe air. It's not excluding personal accountability. Yeah. However, if America's had 245 or 250 years to get her act together and she's still working on it, when I see people, especially in the Second Amendment community, saying things like, oh, black crime and these black people, and they throw that 13 to 52% ratio, which we've slaughtered more than once, right? Like it's a dumb number. Stop saying it, because you're not getting to the nuance of how stats work. Women lie, men lie, numbers don't. Stats can be persuaded. You can bribe stats, right? Yeah. So when we start talking about that, I want Americans to understand, like, look, dude, America has had 245 years to get it together. And anybody that loves this country will say she's the greatest. But yeah, man, she's still got some flaws we're trying to work on, right? Anybody will say that. Well, cool. Well, if that's the case, imagine this. In my lifetime, we just have full opportunity to go sit in every restaurant that you have. In my lifetime. So we can't be telling people to conform and just go along to get along, and you glaze over their life experiences. There were still a couple of restaurants when I was born that I could not go in with my mother because of my skin color. So if America's had 245 years together, let's just round this thing up to 1980-ish. We've had, as a community, 40 years to get it together. And then add on top of that, no fact that I'm going to argue with anybody. One of the great talking points of the Second Amendment community on the conservative side, it is not wrong. They are not wrong when they say it. They're actually 100% fucking right. When they say, hey, yo, what party has been running these urban centers for the last X amount of decades?
Yeah.
Factual. I have no argument to that, because you know what? That's a fact. I can't argue that. That is a fact. They are right. And then what I like to tell people, though, so I'm not going to tell you wrong. If I was to ask you right now to tell me, especially if we're talking to a heavily based Second Amendment community, right, that has some sort of political awareness, if I say, name me the party of racism, what party would they say?
My community would say
the Second Amendment community.
So the Second Amendment community, most of them would say the Democrats.
The Democratic Party, right? And you see it on all the talk shows and all the podcasts, and even some of the gun influencers, right? You know, hey, the Democratic Party is the party of racism. Cool. Now I can say, hey, you want to start talking about the fire eaters? You want to start talking about those guys, a bunch of rich Southern Democrats that were the ones that kind of led in a political and financial way the succession of the Southern states from the United States of America? Yeah, I can also tell you that the Confederate flag was commissioned by the Democratic Party in 1861, 1862. That's a fact. So I'm not going to argue with you, and most people that even say that don't know those facts, right? So I'm not even going to argue with you, right? So because you're not necessarily wrong. But what I want to point out is this. So those same people will then tell you there's no such thing as systemic racism, and this country gives equal fairness and opportunity to everyone. Okay, cool. Now, convince me that the party of racism that's been running these areas for forever, that just allowed me equal freedom, say 40, 50 years ago, okay, why would that party then not use the system on a state level or a local level? It may not be federally, state or local. Why would the party of racist make it fair and easy for me to succeed? If they're the ones running my demographic areas, if they are the party of racism, why would they set in motion things that are meant for me to make it? Why would they do that?
Yeah, I mean, it theoretically wouldn't be true.
It wouldn't make sense. So then you have to say that they're indeed not the party of racism, because racism means to believe that you are superior. So why would they then in turn give me the tools to be equal? That means they lose their superiority, which means they can't be racist.
Okay, yeah, I see where you're going.
You get what I'm saying? Because racism means you believe that you are superior to others, right? So why would you ever want to say, yeah, like, I'm better than you, but let me help you make you equal. Let me help you get the same amount of money as me. Let me tell you all the crap that I'm pulling. Let me bring you up to my level. No, what they do, though, is they go get people that look like me and make it an incentive for them to help keep pushing some of the BS, right? So you get the faces of the bullshit laws and stuff like that. But that is a deeper conversation, and I do have it, right? People want to understand how systemic racism is being performed by the Democratic Party to today. I talk about it, right? And I get into the schools, redlining, gentrification, the whole 9 yards. However, when it comes to guns, when we back up a little bit, is understanding that a lot of people are going to see their reason for having a gun differently than a lot of individuals have been saying for a long time. Doesn't make one right or one wrong. It's just different. It's just different. But it also doesn't matter. I don't give a damn why you have a gun. Your motivation to arm and protect yourself is good enough for me. I don't care why you got it.
Yeah.
You got it. You got a gun. Then we can share information and education and perspective and all that. Once you understand that for whatever your personal reason is, you own a firearm. Cool. We can go from there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the other information and knowledge I wanted to bring. Now, I understand that for a lot of individuals like yourself that will want to learn, or like the people in the chat that will want to hear that perspective, unfortunately, even though we've had great men like the Reverend Ken Blanchard that's been doing this since the internet was even a thing, unfortunately, some of the people with the loudest voice, anytime you get into an opportunity or get an opportunity to learn something, it's normally someone yelling at you.
Yeah.
Right? They're they're
They're
and
doing
they're
the
right,
throw up
but the
on you.
delivery, yeah, you can't
Yeah.
receive the message because you're like if you walk up on me with a good point, but you're yelling at me, like I'm not hearing shit you got to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I'm not, you're wasting your breath. So I also wanted to be a conduit to give information out factually, and I can be passionate about it, but I don't have to yell at you about it. I'm just telling you about it, right? To
Yeah.
give you a perspective and understanding to say, oh crap, there are 43 million Americans in this country that will relate to the story that I'm telling. Wouldn't you love to have some of that information so when you're pushing forward gun rights, you know some of this information. So when you're talking to somebody, now you have a book to go to be like, okay, but did you know? But did you know? Hey, I just learned it a couple of years ago. Were you aware? And all these things tie right back into gun rights, right? Every
Yeah.
massacre that we go to ties into gun rights. Hell, 1898, Wilmington, you know, where literally, and it was a group of Democrats, you know, self-identified group of Democrats that killed what they called the Fusion Group. And the Fusion Group was a lot of black Republicans in Wilmington that also worked with white farmers and other individuals that might have had different political views, but they called themselves a fusion party because they understood that coming together for the betterment of America, what's important, right? So they were cool working with each other. Well, guess what? Those local Democrats didn't like it. They threw a political cue and they wiped out all the black people in that town and killed all their white sympathizers. And guess what they couldn't have? Guns. So it's all relative to the conversation. So we just want to I just wanted to be someone that brought that information and education to the light. And I understood there will be millions of Americans that will also appreciate it, that finally their story is being told. And then I get even more Americans that are like, oh shit, let me hit the Google machine. That's why when I gave my speech at the Second Amendment rally up in Washington, D.C., I had 3,500 patriots go quiet. They went hush. Not because they were mad at me, because they couldn't believe what was coming out of my mouth. And so as they are going hush, you see about 30% of the crowd go down. You know, they're going to the Google machine, right? They're putting their heads down. And then you start seeing people passing the phones like, holy shit, you know?
Yeah.
And they looking up and it's like, yeah, these are the conversations we need to have.
Facts, truth is something that is like, even just the word truth is something that is ignored. There is nothing but false headlines and bullshit that are pumped into people's faces to, you know, feed their lives of consumerism and convenience, in hopes that they ignore freedom, because convenience of your needs feels like freedom, right? And I think people are so blinded, and even those that are well read or that do their own research, there's a stopping point at some point. And like I say it all the time, like even for, you know, people that say like, oh, I'm a constitutionalist, right? That's the biggest one, because like people don't want to, you know, affiliate with, you know, the left or the right. They're like, I'm a constitutionalist. Okay. Tell me, you know, list some of the amendments to me. List some of the constitutional amendments to me. What are the only two constitutional amendments you think they talk about?
And the Second Amendment community?
Just amongst the general public, mostly.
If you're telling me to pick out the two that I heard them talk about the most, I would say the first and the second.
Yeah. And I would say the first and the second are the most important. And I also believe that they don't know of any other constitutional amendments. They're not familiar with the document and our documents, right? Like 2A EDU, he literally read the Federalist Papers on like a 2-hour live stream and dissected it. Like, there's so much that people not only don't know, they likely don't want to know. And it's just kind of sad, because even those that do their own research, that you know, do hunt down and look for information, there's some disconnect. And it's probably because they're looking for information that they agree with. They have some type of bias, or, you know, I don't know, laziness. I couldn't tell you, but I think every single American needs to study the Constitution. We used to do constitutional reading on this channel. I kind of gotten away from that. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize. Bacon, what's up, brother? Thank you. The goddamn Bacon with that 223 super chat. Off-topic question: what kind of cigar is that?
Oh, that is not an off-topic question, sir. I like to share. This one I believe I'm having this evening is this is a Victor Sinclair. This is a Maduro wrap. The Victor Sinclair. It's pretty good. The filler on it is pretty nice. A little loose, but it does get tighter as you start getting toward the lower half of the cigar. It's a mild to medium, well, more of a medium to bold smoke, kind of like right there floating in the middle. It's an easy burn. If you have it in good temperature, you can probably get, I've been burning this for an hour and 20 minutes now. So you can probably get, a good, at least an hour and 30 out of it. So Victor Sinclair stick runs about anywhere between 11 to 13 bucks. Sometimes you can find it for like 10 bucks, but it's a decent gauge on it. It's a decent ring on it. This is probably like a 46, about a 46 ring. So it'll give you a good smoke.
Hell yeah. That's one thing I don't go after cigars. I don't currently I don't even have any cigars, but like if I'm out chilling with like some of my boys, or I don't really go out too often now with a 4.5-year-old, but when I do, I'll always say yes to a good cigar. But I will always bank on my friends knowing much more about cigars than I do. But that's what's up.
All right, man. When we see each other again, stogie on me. I got you.
Man,
Don't worry about it.
dude. I would love that. Thank you. But my apologies. I took that kind of to the left a little bit. But yeah. So that's. I mean, I kind of have some follow-up questions too. But it would. Let's hit the guns first and why they're important to you, and the messages that come along with them, and then maybe at the end, if we have time, I'll tag on a couple questions. They kind of fall in that cultural, social kind of, sphere.
Okay.
So,
sorry, there's a truck going by me at the very end. Did you? What I heard the very last few words you said, but what do you want me to lead into?
yeah, no, I was saying there's a couple questions that I would have, but it would definitely take us on another path. And I do think that going into the firearms, and I can pull up pictures of them too. The firearms, the unique custom boxes, the stories, because I think now everyone kind of knows why you're doing what you're doing, and you're providing education to those. Because I can, in the area that I grew up in, it wasn't hood or anything, but it was a very urban area. Guns were looked at as bad and illegal as well. And I'm in Virginia, right? But I think mostly that's because we were just young, young kids that didn't know or understand laws. And most applications that you would see firearms in, even if they weren't illegal themselves, they were typically being used in illegal manners. So it took me a while to understand that, laws, rules, rights, and all that too. So I kind of find that what you said fascinating too. But yeah, so you want me to pull up pictures of any of these guns? You can
sure. And then I can go into I can start talking about them as you do that.
Yeah, let me do that.
So the kind of the way that we've been talking, my thought process when I was thinking about what I could do that is meaningful for the Second Amendment community, what I can do that is meaningful for my life and the stories that I'm aware of. What can I do that's meaningful? And when I was sitting there having this deep thought process about gun control and about the lies, even the lies we see now, right? Watching these guys on TV, the Chipmans and all these idiots, we're watching all these people on TV, and it's like, you're lying. You're not even stretching a kind of a falsehood. You were just flat out lying to people. And that's all that it's been. Is gun control has always been a way for people to be murdered, slaughtered, abused, controlled. And even when they protect it with lies. And then it hit me one night. I was like, well, why don't I just tell the truth? And so that's where the name of the gun comes from. It's the truth. And so I wanted the first guns in history that, from an educational standpoint anyway, the first guns in history that fought gun control. Because I also thought about when I open a box of a gun, I get, like you, what we get? A manual, lock, extra mag, whatever. I'm like, yeah, and we open these guns, but why? What can we do differently? I said we can tell the truth. So I started having the conversations with Wayne Hammer and Larry with J&L Machining, who Wayne brought to the table. And the design of the gun was quick and easy. We had 3 dudes that love HKs. I'm the one that shot it the most, but those guys are engineers, right? And so the finishing touches on the gun came relatively quick, probably a couple weeks, and we were done with it, right? And this included me calling some people over at HK, checking on some of the engineering specs and making sure we didn't throw the mechanics of the firearm off. Really, but still only a couple weeks to get all that work done. Because I was already so into it. I was already so far ahead of what I wanted to see. And those guys had designs too, because they loved the platform. So that was easy. Now,
you'd mentioned, just real quick, you'd mentioned at one point, you had said you'd already put like a year into designing at some point. Did you already have the VP9 in mind then? Or were you just kind of conceptual? No,
I wanted to make the VP9. I wanted to make like a guy would take his Glock and gets a certain dude to stipple it, and he'll put these parts in. He makes it his own. That was my thought process with the VP9.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like I was just going to make it my own. So I had already been designed in it, but it was just going to be for me.
Gotcha.
So that was easy to kind of tap into that research I had already done and just toss it out on the table. And we got the design all done up, and we get this great guy, still a great friend of mine now. I've slept in his house, a guy named Peter with Carolina Custom Foam. And Peter's like, okay, so we're going to tell a story. Like this was brand new. He's like, what are we doing? But he's an artist and I don't interfere with artists. So he was like, tell you what, dude, you talk and let me envision what you're saying. Just talk to me. Right. And we sat on the phone for 40 or 50 hours over a span of a couple of weeks. And I would just talk like me and you were talking now. And Peter was able to take the stories and bring them to life. And so in the cases, when you open the cases, they are actually telling a story of the slaughter. You see it in visual, written form, and you also get my opinion on the story. So you are getting a visual of what happened. You are getting factual occurrences of what happened, all encased in the foam. And so every time you move the foam, it tells you a different part of the story. And those are the guns that are called the truth, because they are defeating the lies of gun control. And it's also the first gun that I tell you what, I've had not one anti-gunner attempt to even have a discussion with me about them. Because how do you?
Yeah, I would guess that they would not even come close to stepping on toes with.
No, they want no part of that. Right. And on top of that, I can actually tell you that 4 people that were anti-gun actually bought it.
Damn.
Yeah, because they emailed me to tell me like, okay, yep, I'm sorry, dude. Yeah, you got me. How much? And told them, and they bought them. I had one couple in particular. Outside of one couple that did, there was another couple that bought 2. They were like, yeah, we both need to have these. We've been missing out on what the true education why we should have guns. So it actually even changed anti-gunners' mind. But there is no anti-gun group that will even come close to having a discussion with me about that gun. And I've tried, because I've debated moms demand action every town. But when it comes to this project, they will not have a conversation about it.
Yeah, because it goes against their narrative, right? Yep. Like that it is a Frankenstein. Yeah, well, and that's one of the questions I want to save for later too. So, can you see what I got pulled up here?
Yeah. So the one you have pulled up now that's one of the, and we even have updated versions of these cases, which are insane. But that one is telling the story of, scroll down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So stop right there. Go back up. All right. So this is telling the story of the Underground Railroad. Now, most of us have heard about the Underground Railroad, right? We're kind of familiar with it in one way or another. Well, there were roughly about 100,000 people rescued via that system. But here's the unknown thing about the Underground Railroad. We understand it wasn't a physical railroad, right? So on here, you see the railroad kind of heading up into the sky. And in the background, there are 20 doves flying around. Those 20 doves represent 5,000 freed souls each. You can also see a family that is running away from a slave catcher in the background. You can see a guy on a horse with a whip, and you see a family fleeing from him in the background. If you look up to the left, You can see them, right? The story is all in the detail, and you see them running from him, and they're hiding in marshes and swamps because they would try to throw the scent of the dogs off. So they would always run the marshes or swamps. Well, the Underground Railroad was a system, a logistical supply chain originally, and then it was repurposed to sneak slaves out. So you got people that let you use their buildings, that hide you, that give you clothes, that do different things to help the slaves get to where they need to go. So it's the Underground Railroad. It's a system to help people get to where they need to go. However, what people don't realize is there was a man named Moses Dixon. Moses Dixon was from Ohio, eventually went over to St. Louis, Missouri, and started a group called the Knights of Liberty, not to be confused with the original name of the KKK when they used to go by the Knights of Liberty and wear black robes. This is another group. They were just the Knights of Liberty. They wanted to fight for true freedom. And so he started that small group. And what happened is they went from 6 to 12 to 47,000 and some change. That system we know as the Underground Railroad originally was a logistical supply line for these 47,000 illegally armed black men to wage war on the South to forcefully pull slaves out. And then we had Civil War breakout. So if me and you right now are fighting and one of the people in the chat doesn't like either one of us, they're going to wait till one of us wins because even the victor is going to be weak, right? After you have a good war. So there was no point of them raging war at that time. They'll let the North and the South fight it out. So they repurposed it and they made it a way for slaves to sneak out. But that militia of illegally armed men who, interesting enough, Britain actually sent over crates of guns for them. And Britain might have had a reason to see America, you know, be in chaos, right? So Britain supplied them with illegal arms.
Also sounds familiar. Familiar practice.
Yeah, something. Fast and Furious. So you know,
right.
all kind of they supplied a lot of the guns, but when Civil War broke out, it's like, hey, we'll use that to sneak them out. But that militia of illegally armed men, militia might be important. It pops up in this document somewhere, right?
Yeah.
That militia of illegally armed men were the reason that a lot of the slave catchers went in pursuit of slaves because they were the problem in the Underground Railroad. Like if you ran into these highly trained, illegally armed men, you had a problem. Yeah. So that's what we get. There's a movie that came out a few years ago called 12 Years a Slave. And that movie was talking about the reverse Underground Railroad. And what became popular then is to let slaves get settled up north or wherever they were going, even as far as Canada, let them get settled, and they would hire bounty hunters and slave catchers to go kidnap them back. They wouldn't do it overtly anymore. They had to be slick because, and everybody's like, well, why did they do that? Well, they did that because they knew that they were running to this militia of illegally armed men. That's why they had to come more covert about how they brought slaves back into custody. And a lot of people don't know that. And so we talk about that. That's one of the talking points of this case. And then at the bottom, you can see the slave collar that was put on slaves. It was up to 6 feet long. And that collar was meant to keep slaves that attempted to flee. When they caught them, it was a way that your family could not embrace you with love. That collar was meant to keep people away from you. So you couldn't hug your kids, you couldn't hug your family. You were in agonizing pain all day because you had to work with that thing on. So it was a reminder and an intimidation factor in a way to emotionally separate you from everything else, so you wouldn't do that again, right? But and then there's the saying from Harriet Tubman that says, Jesus, what does the quote say on that?
I have seen hundreds of escaped slaves, but I have never seen one who is willing to go back and be a slave. Yeah.
So when you understand that quote by her, which goes on in other writings, when she talks about the slaves that were too scared to pursue freedom, right? They would rather stay than pursue freedom. So this is what I try to bring up to people. Is like literally other people fought the hard fight for you to gain freedom, right? I have a shirt that's on my store, northernchoice.com, that says, my ancestors paid the price, I'm just a receipt. It was the shirt that I was wearing in most of the video you put up. My ancestors paid the price, I'm just a receipt. I'm just a living proof of purchase. And I'll be damned if I give my freedom back to you. It's not happening, right? It's not happening because I was afforded one by someone else. So this is giving you an example of the story about how guns played a part. Like Harriet Tubman was strapped. This is not something she just begged for freedom. And then people need to understand that after what happened is when the slaves got north, those men, and if you watch the movie Harriet, she comes back with a regiment of black men to fight, right? She was a leader of one of the regiments. She comes back with the regiment of black men. What people don't realize is a lot of those black men were from the Knights of Liberty, started by Moses Dixon, that were defending the Underground Railroad. They were trained soldiers. So the Union Army actually paid them higher wages to come deflect and fight for the Union Army because those men had studied how to fight the South.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Which is something that they don't want to teach you in the history books, but it's interesting. So that case encompasses all of that energy.
Wow. Are the other cases? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one there is having a discussion about Black Wall Street. So you can see Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921, right there on the lid of the case.
Mm-hmm.
And in Black Wall Street, that was Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921. Black Wall Street was a young lady named Sarah. What was Sarah's last name? I forget Sarah's last name. I just wrote it. But Sarah was an elevator operator. There was a young man who eventually named himself Dick Rowland, or Dick called himself Dick Rowland, and Diamond Dick was another name he gave himself because he had a diamond ring. He was a shoe shiner, but they made a lot of money off the service industry in Black Wall Street. So they made a lot of their money. Independent community, self-sufficient, did all their own thing. Was everything that you would want somebody to do during segregation. If somebody's not going to share with you, build your own. And that's what Black Wall Street did. There was a lot of Black Wall Streets around the country. A lot of the papers nicknamed it Little Africa. And then some papers called it Enville, right? Spell the N word out, Enville. But Little Africa and Black Wall Street were the names that people said the most because of the lucrative finances there, because they did have their own stores, movie theaters, everything was self-sufficient. So Sarah wound up being an elevator operator. She was a young girl, 18 years old, was going through a divorce from Kansas City. Sarah moved up to Oklahoma, went to Oklahoma, and when she got to Oklahoma, she took a job as an elevator operator. The sheriff that was going to serve her with divorce papers was reading the documents and said that if half the statements in this divorce decree are true, she is a hell of a character, right? Well, Sarah was operating the elevator in the same building that Diamond Dick was a shoe shiner in, and Diamond Dick was a black guy. Sarah was white. He had to go to the 4th floor in order to use the colors only restroom. It was on the 4th floor of the building. That's the restroom he could use. So he took a different elevator up to the 4th floor, and he wanted to ride Sarah's elevator back down because he had a crush on Sarah. They were flirting kind of back and forth. But we can imagine that back then it wasn't okay for interracial couples to be together in 1921. So Diamond Dick, or I'm just gonna call it dude. It's weird saying Diamond Dick. That's just weird. But that was the nickname he gave himself because of his diamond picket ring. But so he went into the elevator. He went to get into the elevator and tripped. He did trip into the elevator and make physical contact with her. And some people that like to not really research history are like, oh, he sexually assaulted her. He did not sexually assault her. She had an ingrown toenail and he stepped on her foot. Now imagine having an ingrown toenail and somebody steps on your fucking foot. You're probably going to scream bloody murder.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So she started screaming bloody murder. And they're like, oh, well, she had ripped clothing. She did not just have ripped clothing. That's what this clown Brandon Tatum recently tried to put out a video talking about. That fucking idiot tries to put out a video talking about that. Oh, she had ripped clothing, so he had to do something to her. No, she started striking him with her purse out of frustration. You just stepped on my ingrown toenail, asshole. And she starts striking him with her purse, and she rips the strap of her purse. So that's how her clothing became ripped. Once the elevator door opened, he ran off. She says that she's just been assaulted, right? Out of frustration and anger. And I'm not protecting her because she's an asshole, but that's what she screams. Long story short, they catch him. It was known at the county courthouse that they hang people. Like a couple of years before that, I think it was the IIW. Yeah, they were a labor group of mainly Irishmen that started in Chicago, but were also operating in the oil industry in Oklahoma. They were Irishmen mainly. Well, a couple of years prior, they took some Irishmen to court over some crimes. And not only did they unfairly charge the Irishmen with the crimes, every other person that came to speak for them on the side of the defense, they locked them up too, just for speaking up. Yeah. And this had nothing to do with black folks. And then they turned those Irishmen over Literally they were sentenced, and then the police chief turned and the judge turned the Irishman over to the Klan, and they tarred and feathered the Irishman, right?
Damn.
And so people knew that you weren't safe in that courthouse, and so there were rumors that they were going to go lynch him. So there was a group of black men, because you could have certain arms then, right? That's why I tell people, when people get to saying, oh, you can have this but can't have that, the restrictions of arms is the illusion of freedom. It's not true freedom. It's the illusion of freedom.
Yeah.
So certain people, and because they had the money in Black Wall Street, certain black people did have arms, and some of them were armed illegally. They didn't give a damn, right? But they could pay for the expensive permits. They could bribe people. They could get guns, but they could have loan guns. Like, having a loan gun wasn't necessarily out of the question. Yeah. Well, what happened is they went to stand guard of the jail just to make sure he got a fair trial. That's all they went to go do. Well, some of the white people became agitated, and one of the white men walked up to one of the black guys, and he asked him, I'm just going to say it because it's the truth. He asked him, he said, the dude's holding a long gun, and he's got a pistol tucked into his waistband. And a white guy looks right at him and says, hey, nigger, what are you doing with that pistol? Because he knew it was questionable for a black man to have a handgun, as
opposed to a long gun. That was
as opposed to a long gun, right?
Hunting,
because they didn't trust black people to have guns that could be hid. They didn't trust it. So a scuffle. He tries to take the gun from him, and a shot rings off. That's why we still don't know who pressed the trigger on the gun, because they were fighting over it. Yeah. And then from there, the chaos broke out. So the end of the story is they burned that town. The local police actually commissioned individuals, and there are accounts. We have historical accounts that have been placed in textbooks, well, not textbooks, but written books that aren't taught in school, where the local police originally tried to go to the armory, the National Guard armory, and secure firearms, and the National Guard wouldn't have no parts of it. They didn't let them in. So they went to hardware stores that sold guns back then. They went to hardware stores, looted the hardware stores, and people wanted to be deputized. Do you know what they said to people to deputize them?
What?
Grab a gun, get a nigger.
What?
And gave them a ribbon. So they would give you a ribbon, and you were sworn in by saying, grab a gun, get a nigger.
And this is 1921.
This is 1921. So they did just that. Now, the blacks in that town did fight back. There was a great leader by the name of O.B. Mann. O.B. Mann was kind of one of the pseudo leaders, and they did attempt to fight back. They just didn't go down. They attempted to fight back, but it was a valiant effort. It just didn't work. So they burnt that entire community down, burnt it to the ground. They would shoot people, throw them back in the fires as they try, because they would set buildings on fire to flush you out, kill you, and throw your burning body back in, or hold a gun to you and dare you to come outside. So you had a choice to burn to death or be shot. Choose. Yeah. Right. So they went through that community, eradicated it. You can see crop planes with the state police dropping propane bombs and kerosene bombs from the sky. Damn. And shooting at people from the sky. These are all factual accounts. This is not hyperbole. So when people talk about the first bombs being dropped from a plane in America, unfortunately, it wasn't Pearl Harbor. It was right in Oklahoma.
Damn.
So it was, and they burnt that town down, eradicated that community. And then the history books want to lie about it. So watch these freaking idiots you listen to that are talking about even if it was only 24 black people, I don't know about you, but I think, 24 dead people is a lot of fucking people dead.
Well, right? I mean, look what happened in our country for, the better half of a year over, 13 minorities that were killed, that's damn. That's
so
crazy.
when you look at Black Wall Street and you look at how it was occurred, it was nicknamed America's Black Eye. That's what America nicknamed it, America's Black Eye, and they didn't want it talked about. They didn't want it discussed in schools. They literally politically suppressed it. In town, if you talked about it, you were ostracized. Nobody was allowed to talk about it. They had the mass grave. They didn't want to talk about the mass grave. They threw out some bullshit numbers of deaths, and they tried to sweep it under the rug. Well, then in 1923, they did the same exact thing at East St. Louis, which is another case tells that story. They did the exact same thing in East St. Louis, and in East St. Louis is in Illinois. The other three sides of St. Louis are in the state of Missouri, right? Now, in East St. Louis, when people attempted to go across a bridge called the East Bridge that leads you into St. Louis, they're trying to run from the slaughter, right? They're trying to get away from the massacre that started over labor disputes. It was all about black people being used as scabs. The white union workers got mad, and they started beating and clubbing black people in the streets. And there were some other incidents that happened with a cop being shot and some other little stuff that happened that gave them an excuse to wildly terrorize. They were already terrorizing people in their neighborhoods and assaulting and beating them. But then this just gave them an excuse. So they killed 250 people in broad daylight.
Damn.
And burnt that city to the ground. And when the black people attempted to run across the East Bridge to Missouri for freedom, Missouri law enforcement stood on a bridge by orders of our governor saying that they can't come over here. So imagine that. And that's why I tell people, when you think the police gonna protect you, nah, son. Nah, you responsible for your own security. So that's the East St. Louis, and then I talked about Rosewood earlier. And so those are the 4 cases. And we're telling these factual stories and these factual occurrences and how guns played a part in that, right? So it's very, very important for people to understand how these things play out, what these things mean, and how they are relevant to modern history now, which is the reason why nobody will challenge me on these guns.
That's
It's like, yeah, we're not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Like, no, we're staying away from that, right? And that's not even talking about Red Summer that happened, right before that. So another thing I tell people on a social thing of it, imagine this, man. When people say, you get the extremists, right, to say stuff like, just get your communities together. Motherfucker, every time we did, America burnt them down.
Yeah.
So imagine how much generational wealth we lost. Imagine how many great educators we lost. Imagine how many family leaders we lost. Imagine.
Yeah, I mean,
And so not even 100 years ago, entire generations were wiped out and no one was arrested. We don't have any arrests from these incidents. No convictions. Nobody went to prison.
damn.
And so imagine that. And then imagine 60 years after that, you finally gain your independence to go in any restaurant you want to.
That's fucking bizarre. I'm definitely gonna need to do some additional research after this, man. I mean, because none of this shit is talked about and it's not discussed. And the pictures that, like, when people mention like Black Wall Street, for an example, no one has shared the information with me like that. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, man, we have to now. I can proudly say this. I want information out there. I've been talking about this for 7-8 years now, even before the guns came out, right? I've been pushing this information out there, talking about this information in local community events. Every time I get an opportunity, I'm talking. And now I look up and I'm happy about it, but I'm going to take credit for everyone else paying attention now. I look up and all of a sudden we have 2, not 1, but 2 documentaries being produced about it. We've had some like YouTube documentaries, but now we got some major money going behind the productions of talking about it. If that show that was on HBO, The Watchmen, it opened up talking about it. It opened up on HBO with depicting Black Wall Street and what happened there. I've been screaming about this from the rooftop for a long time, and I'm happy to see now that America's finally ready to actually hear this story and get the truth.
Well, I think an interesting thing is that you took a story and put it in a consumable product to people likely with open minds, right? To people that likely research. And what I mean by that is that, people that are purchasing firearms likely do research. People that are purchasing very high-end firearms are likely to do a good amount of research too. Of course, there's going to be some shortcomings, like I mentioned earlier, but this is a consumable product that people can actually not only they get to understand what happened and have a functional item for self-preservation, freedom, liberty, and just exercising their God-given rights.
Yeah, and that's what it was meant to do. One of the beautiful stories about the gun, and the gun is a machine itself, right? And I can talk about it in depth. During every piece of that gun we went through to make sure it was a fighting machine for you. So it's not just, hey, buy this cool case and we're going to just throw and toss in this gun. Like, that gun is a machine. It's just a flat out machine. But what I wanted people to do is be educated. So I love because we only made 49 of these things and we only have 6 of them left. But I love it when the people that order them, when we transfer them in, they email me or they'll get a call, because anybody that orders it gets my phone number. Anybody orders that gun, you can call me directly. And they'll email me or call me and they're like, it took me hours to get the gun out the damn gun store. Because when the FFL receives it in, they got to open it up, get the serial number and everything, right? Yeah. So they receive it in. They're like, what the hell is this?
Looking at the case,
looking at the case,
yeah.
right? And they're like, what? Now they're Googling, right?
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, they bring the case out and they're showing it to other customers. They're like, did you know about this? And they're like, no, I didn't know about this. So the gun becomes a talking piece at the gun stores before it even gets into the customer's hands. And so it starts to spread that information. Now imagine the anti-gunner, because I have 4 of them buy this gun. Imagine them now sitting at home, holding on to this gun, having to self-correct all the BS that they've been fed while they're holding this gun in their hand and looking at that case.
Yeah,
they never fight back.
I don't know how they would, right? Because I mean, these are the same. Hold on, did you guys put? I'm trying to see. Did you add material on the back of the slide for grabbing it to rack it, or did you?
No. So what we did with the serrations on them is we took the serrations and doubled them in depth. So it's nothing added as far as anything that's off of the standard gun. What we added was grip texture by just slightly re-angling and doubling the serration depth, right? So when you grab onto that gun with or without gloves, you're always going to get a positive grip to it. So there's nothing added there but more depth and a little bit of contouring, but no material or anything. And then what you see is the back strap. So if you're looking at the tang or the back strap of the firearm, what that is the stippling, the custom stippling that goes up. So we put the stippling on the gun to make sure it's going to help you maintain positive reference points on the gun, but also be comfortable, but also be what stippling is for, right? Grip, right? So you can always get a positive grip on the gun. And we stippled, got the right texture of the gun, stippled it, but we also took the swells in the back strap to come extra with the VP9 platform, and we stippled those to match too. So if you get to interchanging them, it'll always look the same, even if you have a smaller or larger back strap on the gun.
Nice.
So we made sure we did that too. And even the mag well is not added onto the gun. That extra mag well to strip the mag out, that's contoured out of what the gun currently exists. And I wanted as few additional parts on the gun as possible, right? I don't like a lot of shit that's screwed onto my gun. I just don't. So that's actually contoured into the gun to help you actually get that firearm out. And then the slide has the coffin and the window cuts, but it also has the bevels up front that helps you out with one-hand manipulation in case you need to get that staircase or any sharp corner. We have the bevels up front that ride the side of the barrel, so you can actually get that gun up there and force it back in the battery in case it jams up on you real hard, or you have a one-handed manipulation. You can do that without damaging or potentially damaging your putting obstructions in your barrel. The trigger guard is actually contoured differently on the inside, so you don't get a lot of trigger drag. I still have a callus on my finger now from shooting that platform, the original platform, because there was a lot of trigger drag at the bottom for guys with larger hands. So we contoured that out a little bit, so now you don't have that drag. We also stippled the European mag releases so you can get a positive release every time you go to release a mag. So your mag release is also stippled as well if you want it. Some people didn't want it. But that's also stippled as well, for you can always get a positive release, because with that platform, if you get moisture on your hands, you can slip off of that mag release and it doesn't come out. So we wanted to make sure that we fixed that. Put a Lobos Industries trigger inside of the gun, so it's an all aluminum trigger with a red shoe. Most of them come with red shoes on it, red safety shoes on it. But we got the aluminum trigger in there. It gives you a little bit more of a better response with firing that gun, a cleaner break. HKs have more of a roll kind of system, but you can really feel that one a lot better. And Lobos is made by an aircraft engineer who deals nothing but with high-end aircraft materials. So we went with that trigger in it. And this particular model has a Vortex Viper, 6 MOA dots sitting on top of it with an M-Force APL is on that one. It's either the APL or the APLC. I can't tell if that's a threaded barrel or not. And then an M-Force TFX flashlight comes with each gun for free. So we tossed it in, and your light is Cerakoted to match your firearm. You can get your gun in all the red and black the way you see it, or all black. Those are the two options for it. So and then we put Heine.
That's what's up.
Oh yeah, six of them left. We make them to order, and we're gonna make 6 more of them, and then that's it. There are Heine front and rear sights on them. We're going with Trijicon sights now if you order it, but on those we had Heine front and rear sights, and you can put any red dot you want on it. I know Holliston's all the crave right now, so if you want to do an RMR footprint, we can put the RMR footprint on there for you. Obviously, you can go with any light that you want, and if we can Cerakote the light, we'll still Cerakote the light for you. And then we'll toss in the flashlight for you for free. So it's customizable to a degree. If you want a different red dot, we can put whatever red dot you want on it, and you can attach whatever light you want to it, and we'll make sure it matches your gun. And your case will be cut for that light and that optic when it arrives to you.
Damn, that's pretty awesome, man. I watched in a few different videos. You kind of walk through all the modifications, and I mean, a lot of thought went into that. And I've built a lot of guns personally, and you know, typically I have like everything planned out before I even, you know, purchase anything, right? Like I may have like an 80% lower or like something ready, right? But the amount of planning, preparation, designing, like even the magwell, like heating the grip and molding it and manipulating it to, you know, fan out to a magwell, like that's dope, man. The trigger guard mod, I mean, I'm impressed. That's I am not a VP9 guy. As a matter of fact, over the last year and a half, we've had a lot of people that may have not been as firearm friendly in the past, kind of get into firearms, mostly out of fear and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
My brother purchased his first gun, and he hits me up and he's like, hey, after hours and hours and hours of talking, which started with a phone conversation that said, hey, can I borrow a gun? And I was like, all right, let me school you on a few things, right? Now him and several other of my family members are, very deep into this. Like they've made the commitment. They've not just got a gun. They, are carrying. They've got gun belts and they've got long guns and, good quality holsters. And so I'm proud of them. But anyway, when he called me, he was like, I got my first gun. It's a VP9. And the first thing I asked was, bro, why the VP9? But after all this, seeing like I like that gun a lot. I'm impressed.
Yeah, man, it's a good platform, and I'm a huge fan anyway of ambidextrous guns. One of the skill sets I teach my students in my level 2 classes is how to run a handgun ambidextrous.
Mm-hmm.
We do one-handed, but even teaching them, like especially when you start getting into clearing certain corners or certain structures, if you're right-handed and you attempt to lean your ass out, if a wall's right here and you attempt to lean your ass out to get that gun out there first, you might run into some problems, right? So sometimes even switching to ambidextrous to keep both hands on the gun is good. So I like ambidextrous platforms anyway for that purpose. It makes it a lot easier. But yeah, I think it just worked. But I appreciate it. Yeah, we put a lot of thought into that gun. But this is what I tell people. This is also what happens when a shooter designs a gun.
Exactly.
When you actually have someone who is running the guns a lot. So it wasn't just, oh, I want this. It's like at the same time, especially when Wayne and Larry got involved, it's like, yeah, let's expand this too. What do shooters want in general? Maybe just not out of the VP9, but out of their guns in general, right? So we wanted to make a fighting machine. This gun is not built to be a safe queen. If you come train with me, up until recently, every time I was there at any training, I had that gun on me, or either the compact version, or the full size, and I would throw it on the table and I would let people run it. And they'll, they're like, oh, this is a custom gun. They'll be real careful because if you shopping at Gucci Market, understand how much those guns cost. Well, that platform is right around fully loaded without the extras on it. It's $1975. If you get it fully loaded, you can't add anything extra to it. It's $2305. But even for $1975, you get 2 barrels, 2 sets of sights, all your swells and your back straps are stippled to match. It includes the Cerakote if you want the red on it. If you want to go all black, it's $100 cheaper. It includes the Cerakote, and we cost you a flashlight and a historic custom case. And if you look at any of the other Gucci guns, just sometimes getting them in a plain box, they run that same price.
Yeah.
And you don't get as many extras, right? And then you can also add another $1,500 on top of that to go get you a Salient or something like that. So even in its category of guns, it's still cost effective. None of us did this for the money. It was a passion project, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are guns out there that are similar to it, and I won't name one or the other, that just for the plain gun, before you add any extra in it, no case, no flashlight, no optic, no red dot, no nothing, are $2,700. And you can get mine fully decked out, fully loaded with a red dot, a light, and everything for $2305.
That's what's up, man. That's I'm not gonna lie. I got some Gucci guns, and it's easy to put $2,000 into a handgun if you are really putting everything that you truly want on it. And yeah, and guys, just so you know, like this, we're not doing this like to sell you the gun, right?
Mm-mm.
For those of you that have been here for the last 2 hours, I'm sure you know that this isn't an infomercial. For some of the folks that just jumped on, you got to watch the whole stream. This was a marvelously just educational and intellectual stream. Oh, and not only that, the case that you got, I literally have one right here. It's not dope laser cut like storytelling, right? But that in itself is not a cheap case. Like that's the one I fly with when I bring handguns on a plane. When I legally check them on an airplane, that's not a cheap case, man. That's
Yeah, if you were to attempt to buy that case, you can't get that particular case unless it's with this gun. But let's just say something of its ilk with the customization in it, something along those lines. You're looking at about anywhere between $250 to $400 for that case. So it is, yeah, like nothing on it is cheap. Everything is meant to, and I get it, right? The price point in general. If you are not a Gucci gun buyer, you don't even look in this category, right? But guys, there are a lot of people out there that, and we just nickname it that category, right? The Gucci gun category, right?
yeah.
And so if you're in that category, then yeah, this would be a gun that is for you. It's a collector's item. It makes a lot of sense. It's got a lot of history behind it. So this is what those guys want. They want this type of gun, right?
Yep.
But if you look throughout my history of it, I've never done a review on that gun. Not one. Not one ever. Now you can see me shooting it. People can shoot it, and it works. We haven't had one return. It's a machine. It's been at all the classes. Rangers have ran it. It's been at every school I go to. It's been ran by the students there. It's been ran by my students. I travel the country with the gun. They run. You can see me doing night vision. It runs. It's a beast. I didn't do a review video on it because I didn't want people to think I was trying to sell it to them. Nope. Yeah. Because I would still do videos and tell you like, hey, go buy this Canik TP9, man. It's a great little gun. It's $300. Comes with extra mags, everything that you need. And this is with a dude that's carrying his signature pistol on his waist, because I understand that the average American that is not that deep into what we do, they just want to protect themselves. And I don't want you looking at me like, oh, I'm not a cool kid because I can't go out and buy a $2,000 handgun. No, dude, this $300-$400 gun, as long as it's the right manufacturer, it's going to be just great for you. And we can get you a holster. We can get you out the door, fully kitted and cabooded with a good starter kit for $600 or less, on a good day. So let's do that for you. And then you know what that builds? That builds trust. Because they're like, damn, this dude didn't try to sell me a gun with his name on it. Like, no, because I don't need to. I'm just want you to understand freedom. And that is a passion project that represents freedom. If you want it, awesome. I would love to have you have one of them. Great. We would love to design it and get it out to you. And if you don't, well, what other gun can we get you? Because everybody's not dropping $2,000. I'm a realist, right? Yeah. But for the people that shop in that market, they understand why it's a hell of a deal. Yeah.
I guess my challenge would be figuring out which story I would want in the box. Do you get to pick, or do you just get whichever one
you get to pick?
Okay.
Yeah, you get to pick.
I saw the dude that does the laser cutting on, I think it was John Crump's live chat, maybe.
Yeah, I believe he recently was with John. Yeah, Peter.
Yeah. Yeah, you could tell he's an artist. That's like the only way to describe. I mean, that's some impressive shit, dude. That's some pretty impressive shit.
Now here's the cool thing: a little check mark for the Second Amendment community. And this is what Peter says. This is not my words, and I think he's being too gracious in a ton of respects. But this was the first project outside of just the norm that he ever did, right? And so this project, even though some of you guys are just hearing about it, when it came out and it was on in every gun magazine and everybody was talking about it, like if anybody's ever been to SHOT Show, we closed down an entire aisle of SHOT Show with over 200 people waiting for the reveal of this gun. Damn. 2018. It was a big deal. So that was kind of Peter's first project. And since then, because of the spread of that, this is his words, not mine, because of the spread of the truth and people talking about it. Now, this dude has went on to do cases. All the John Wick cases you see, he did. He's done cases for Big Show, Three Doors Down, all kind of actors and entertainers and rappers and so forth and so on. So even telling this story and letting people see how we can tell this story has helped a small Second Amendment business now cross over into mainstream.
That's awesome.
So,
You
and this
never
is
see
the
that.
kind of stuff we should be doing.
Yeah, you never see that. I mean, that's huge. Yeah, that's so he did some of the John Wick stuff.
Yeah, the cases of the late, I think he from 2, 3, and 4. I think he's done all their cases. Like if you see the John Wick display of like SHOT Show, the guns will be in cases like Peter did that.
Damn.
Like I know Taryn does, and I believe Keanu Reeves has some of Peter's cases at home.
Nice, man. That's dope. Yeah, I've been to SHOT twice, and back when I used to work in the industry, and shutting down like a whole. I mean, the show is massive. Like it's you can't even put like a. I mean, massive doesn't even begin to describe it. So to shut down an entire walkway, and I've met like the craziest people there too. Like I met Arlie Ermy before he passed away. Rest in peace. He was kind of a dick, but you know, I still got to meet him and see his eyebrows. You know, Dog the Bounty Hunter, like crazy shit like that. Like, and then of course all the you know gun tubers. But it's I mean, if you haven't been to SHOT Show, and if you have a reason to go, if you have an FFL that you're close with, and I mean they can likely get you in, but to shut down something like that takes a lot of people and a lot of attraction, and I can see why. This is a dope piece. So good for you for bringing it to life and spreading the truth.
Yeah, man, that's all I wanted to do. I was happy and to get the reception from the Second Amendment community, which is normally a community that when they speak about their passion, they are normally right. And this wasn't about you being wrong. This was really shocking because they're like, what? But one of the beautiful things is everybody has said for years, right? I've only been around here for about 8 as far as being public with guns. I've been doing this stuff for 20 years. But from my understanding, when I was watching YouTube videos before I ever made a video, just another guy sitting at home watching YouTube videos, right?
Mm-hmm.
I used to always hear like in the whispers. It wasn't really loud, but it was kind of a whisper. Like, we need more people doing this, man. We need more. We need men, women, minorities. Like, yo, come on, the white dude's out here by himself. Somebody help us, right? kind of like, yo, we need help. And what I realized was, yeah, the beautiful thing about that is now it can be good and bad. You start getting millions of people. You also start getting millions of perspectives, millions of different stories, right? And so when I came in, I was like, yo, one of the reasons I think that people relate to me, even if they don't necessarily like what I say up front, the reason they'll eventually start relating to me is I am not only going to stand on how I feel. I am an alpha man, and I'm not about to let anybody make me a beta. Damn it. Had enough of that shit in my life. I'm a man, right? So I'm going to speak on my morals, my principles, and my convictions. And that being said, I'm such a man that I allow other men to do the same, right? Like, it's not a competition. I don't have to rule over you, but I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. I believe men respect that, right? They like, yeah, we can respect that. I can dislike you, but respect that about you. So what happened was when I got here, I was like, you know what, man? I'm not going to be like everybody else. I never inspired to, and like all these dudes are buddies of mine. John Hickok, he's a great dude, but I never inspired to be Hickok. I'm buddies with Yeager. I never inspired to be Yeager. I never inspired to be Hank Strange. I literally got over here kind of by accident and was like, I'm going to be me because that's what's needed. We need everybody to say, I'm going to be me. And I was me. And then when people gave me a platform, they fucked up. Like now we're going to roll with it, and we're going to make sure everybody understands this. So it was good to be able to bring this diversity, this conversation to the forefront and do it in a way that's digestible. And I don't have to make you feel guilty when doing it.
Yeah, I feel that, man. A lot of people are they're into R&D, rip off and duplicate. You know, and this world is, I mean, everything has already been conceptualized once, right? Like, you know, but just be authentic if you're doing this. Like, you know, it's kind of like this kind of fell in my lap too, because when we started this channel, it was me, the other dude, Light, who's still involved. He's just in South Florida with family. And the other dude was Dugan Ashley, formerly of Karnacon. And I mean, they basically both left. And I was like, well, I'm going to keep doing my thing. And after like 4 months and some change, Light came back. He just had some family stuff going on. And, but yeah, I mean, you got to just do you, man. Just be authentic to you and who you are. And it's interesting just because something you said earlier kind of resonated with me, because one of the things that I say to the community in likely almost every stream, probably ad nauseum, is I tell people to, live a life of care, contribution, compassion, love, care about people, contribute to people, and also at the same time, be the most dangerous motherfucker that you can be.
Yes, sir.
And that's to this day, I'll okay, Luminous says he's hard as fuck. Okay, all right, I guess that's a good thing. Yeah, so I mean, that's you just got to be authentic to who you are. But after seeing all this, hearing all this, and looking at all this, you know what you need to do next.
What's that?
What platform you think I'm gonna recommend you to do a KD special?
Oh, you mean like a certain manufacturer or firearm style?
A specific firearm. If I were to tell you to do something, maybe similar, maybe not. I mean, honestly, one thing that comes to mind. Well, I'll tell you. First is I was gonna say the HK MP5. I mean, if you were to, partner up with, somebody, whether it's PTRs or, anything like that, that doesn't necessarily matter as much. But if you could do something like this with an MP5, I mean, I guess those are already several thousands of dollars, but that would be so dope. But the thing that came to my mind is getting the truth out. Like, all of this is like very important. It's obviously very important to you, and I commend you for doing that. You could also use kind of a spin on this with your boy doing the cases and telling the history of the firearm that you're getting out there as well. That's a little more mainstream too, but it's cases like that are just a great opportunity to tell stories, right? So, some guns you may be able to tell stories of former conflicts. Some guns you may be, I mean, there's so many different routes you could go with it, but I think the idea is just dope.
Yeah, I don't think that that's a bad idea at all. The only thing I'm at liberty to say right now is that the continuation of this idea is in discussion, and there will be something to be looking forward to next year.
Okay, I like it.
Now, the ones we're looking at right now on the screen, once the 6 we got are gone, you will never see that project again. If you got them, you got them. If you don't, you can buy a patch that goes to charity, and you can have the patch. It's all on the website. But and that's what some guys did. Hey, some guys, they were like, dude, I want to support, but hey, my budget doesn't allow them. Like, hey, I got this $10 patch of that gun that you can buy that was donated to me that will go out to charity. So you can even support the mission that way, just by buying a patch. So
that's what's up. So where can people find you?
So on the website is as simple as nootherchoice.com, all spelled out, nootherchoice.com. The platform I'm the most active on is Instagram, and it's the real _ NOC for No Other Choice. So the real No Other Choice. So the real _ NOC. That's the platform I'm most active on, and it's the same on all platforms. There's also a YouTube channel, The Real NOC. I am excited because I just got like a couple months ago, I finally got a full-time videographer, and now I've actually added a producer to the crew. So this fall, we're going to have a crap ton of gun content coming out with a totally different spin on it, to give what I like to call the everyday person kind of a different look into guns and how we want to present them. We're going to be doing different academies. We're going to go. It's going to be, I think, different and great the way we're going to bring gun content. And the other thing that we're going to be doing on a channel, you can find a link to my channel over at The Real NOC. Where we have a podcast starting. We're going to start recording it in September. And that podcast is going to be getting the Second Amendment community. The beautiful thing about what I do with the community outreach is I get my hands on different people, right? So my Instagram has pro athletes following it because I've trained them. It has pro athletes following it. I have entertainers following me. I have a lot of different people following me. So now what I'm going to do is try to get some of those individuals to come sit and have a conversation, not necessarily about guns, but someone I would like for a platform that is open discussion where we can talk about real world stuff because yeah, we like guns, right? But we're fathers, we're entrepreneurs. We struggle with certain things, right? We some of us are married, we have marital issues. Some of us need to understand economics a little bit more, you know, how to invest our money, understand how to deal with mental frustrations. And when we want to break somebody's fucking neck, how we need to calm down. And, you know, all the just a lot of life out there, right? Even off-roading and fishing and hunting, different things that people are really, really into, vacationing. So I'm starting a platform that's going to talk about that stuff. And I'm going to bring on guests, in-studio guests, where we're pulling from people that have that area of expertise. So we're going to have athletes, we're going to have entertainers, we're going to have rappers, we're going to have avid hunters, we're going to have some of your favorite gun industry people on there. And we're going to, even with the gun industry folks, who?
YouTubers,
yeah, we'll have them on there. And we're going to, everybody's going to be primed to talk about something normally than what they normally talk about. Like, right, I just want to, hey man, let's spend 20 minutes just talking about how fucking hard it is being a parent. Right, and some of the tips you can give out to people, just different stuff. So we'll talk about the gun, but we're gonna get into different stuff. So that that podcast is called Stogies and Straps, and so the stogie represents the casualness of having a conversation. You don't see people fighting while smoking cigars, right? You just have a casual conversation. Now the guests might not smoke, and that's fine. But the stogie represents the piece to have the cigar, and guess what? They're kind of manly, right? Like, yo, we're just gonna sit here. It's a status thing. We're gonna have a cigar. And then the straps, obviously you can't say the word gun on YouTube because they get to having a damn fit, right? You can't say gun, you can't say firearm, right? But the strap part is obviously saying the strap obviously is a play on the term firearm or gun. It's the freedom to have this conversation, right? It's the freedom to be able to say and voice your opinion without being accosted because of it, right? So it's stogies and straps. So that's going to be the platform, and it's going to allow for us to have a platform that crosses over into other genres, gets us closer to the mainstream or in the mainstream, right? But you know that the person that's having these conversations believes in your freedom and believes in your rights. Even if the guest doesn't, you know the individual that is operating the platform does. He has your back 1,000%. We're just having conversations. So imagine watching in a podcast on some of the other stuff that you're into, but knowing that the dude that is running this podcast at the end of the day stands for freedom, stands for the Constitution, and has your back 1,000%, even if we're talking about whatever up under the sun. So I want to bring that platform to the world. So it's in a cigar bar. So it'll be beautiful scenery. There are hundreds of cigars lined up behind us, nice leather chairs, dim lights. It's actually in a Prohibition era speakeasy.
Nice.
So it's kind of like we're going to be sitting in a spot where people that didn't like the government telling them what they couldn't do, they're going to make their own clubs, and that's what we're doing. And the location itself is a very gun-friendly place because it's not abnormal to walk into this speakeasy today and see the staff armed.
Nice.
So it's stogies and straps. Be on the lookout for it. It's going to be great. We'll start releasing episodes this fall.
That's what's up, man. Definitely when you do, you're welcome to come back and, plug it. And, I'm happy to share it on my community tabs and all that. I think that's a dope idea. The other thing too, I want to, kind of celebrate is the fact that you openly discussed the challenges you had growing up and, the challenges with mental health. And I struggled with substance abuse for, 2/3 of my life. And I was a heroin addict, and I got more than 10 and a half years. So I'm coming up on November 5th will be 11 years clean.
Congratulations, brother. Congrats.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. And, seeing somebody and understanding like what they've overcome and the discipline and just like everything that you must be to overcome something like that. And not only just like overcoming, because then that becomes the baseline or the barometer to kind of like, like what's the next step? You've done an excellent job, man. So you should be proud of yourself.
All right, so should you. So should you. And so I'm going to say this live here right now. You see what you just said? That's a story that Americans need to know about. Because see, that's the shit that we struggle. How many people in the world right now could learn from you about that? Fuck guns. Take guns off the table.
A lot. We've actually
right?
talked about it on the platform quite a bit, and we've never made one stream or episode like specifically just towards substance abuse, but I could absolutely guarantee you with certainty that every single person that is either subscribed to me or has listened to this that have been affected or know somebody that has been affected by opiate abuse, substance abuse, intravenous drug abuse, lost somebody. Like the majority of my friends that I grew up with are either dead or in jail or still using drugs. So there's like zero contact, even if I chose to. And there are a lot of people out there that are in the same situation or have experienced similar things or have a loved one that has experienced similar things. So I would love to, have those conversations.
Well, good, because all you're going to have to do, so right now in front of your audience as a witness, so one thing people need to understand about me, I don't do the cool kid shit. Tell people that all the time. Like one reason I think that the everyday man relates to me is no matter what magazine you see me on, I will have a stake with anybody. Like I'm a very like down to earth dude. I'm just another. I'm thankful to be alive. Like I'm pretty sure you are right after your struggles. I'm just thankful to be alive. Every day on God's green earth is a blessing to me. So I'm going to say right now, this is my platform is not built off only the cool kids. It is only the people that are out there working every day and have a mission though. So right now in front of your audience, I'm telling you, you're going to get an invite to come down to Atlanta and be a live studio guest on Stogies and Straps.
Damn. Okay. Done.
All right. So you will probably get that invite from my coordinator, my producer. We're going to start sending out those invites probably by mid-September for the invites in November and December, which in Virginia, you probably run down south to get a little break from some of the weather.
Yeah.
So we'll probably get you an invite right around then. You'll come in. These are all pre-recorded. They're not live. So you'll come into the studio. You'll get you a nice bourbon. We can get you a nice cigar. And we're going to sit down and we're going to spend a couple hours and we're going to talk about you. Just like you talked about me, then we're going to talk about you. So we'll put you on Stogies and Straps.
Hell yeah. I would love to. And honestly, I'd probably take a car trip down there because I fly. I love flying. But there's something special about just a road trip, man. And I could use some time away. So yeah, I'm game. Let me know. I'll make it work.
You'll get the invite. You come down, and while you're down here, we'll I know you're a YouTube channel, so and I know you know a lot of guys, right? Like you've had some pretty awesome guests on. So I'll make sure that while you're down, we'll make the most of your trip, man. Maybe we'll get a Iraq veteran out to dinner with us.
Oh yeah.
We'll see if we can do some cool stuff to maybe also, get you in front of some people that can help your channel grow. So that's what we should be doing. That's what we should be doing. We really should be helping each other, having these conversations. I don't give a fuck about our different backgrounds. I give a damn about the fact that we respect each other. I give a damn about the fact that we are all men trying to achieve different things in life. And I've been happy in my life to be able to afford people other opportunities. I've created with my train and learn event, which I know we didn't talk about, but even with my train and learn event, I've been happy to birth and assist 40 LLCs
Damn.
that I help craft and grow that are all making their somewhat of their living off of the Second Amendment, right? Their platforms do other things, but they're freedom-based platforms, right? So anything that we can ever do to help each other, that's from, helping a guy, load groceries at the store, to helping someone be educated, to helping someone understand guns, or to helping someone get their story out because it's someone else that can learn from it. Hell, I can learn from it, right? Because even you saying that, man, to me, it's like as soon as you start saying that shit, I'm like, he's missing it. Like that is That's the shit that changes lives, man. Guns are great. Don't get me wrong. They're great.
Yeah.
But that type of shit is the shit that makes people put that on in their car, and they don't have to think about politics. They don't have to think about what writing their senator. They just have to focus on self-improvement and understanding there's somebody out there that understands what they're going through now. And that's how we, as a Second Amendment community, in a positive way, infect the rest of America to let them know we're just like you.
Yeah.
We are just like you. We need to integrate ourselves into the fabric of American society in a better and different way. And that's what that show is about. And that's why your ass is going to come on there.
Dude, I love it. I appreciate it. And I'd be honored to come on there and grateful to. And I agree. We all need to pour into each other, you know, and I think that having like, you know, our channel, which is a very small, you know, baby born, you know, just born channel, and then Crump and, you know, 2AEDU and CRS and just like all these people that just kind of like we have, you know, cross viewership between us and we share things and just help each other. And I couldn't ask for a better setup, man. So thank you for falling now into that group and, you know, helping out. And I'm excited for it.
It's my pleasure, brother. It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
So I'll let you end on, you know, the words of wisdom. You get to share any last message that that you want. And unless, because I know we're at 2 hours and 25 minutes, I have 2 questions. If you can, we can either save them or if you can surmise them within like a couple sentences.
Okay, go.
What are your thoughts on CRT?
Critical race theory is one of the most confusing things to me ever in the history of manhood. And here's why.
Mm-hmm.
I understand for the people that want it. I understand what they're talking about putting in the schools is what I've pretty much been talking to you about since we've been on the platform, right? They want that in schools. And that is the purest form. It's like proper education and information of things that have happened and how race affects American society. Then it is the other people that are taking that opportunity to educate people and they're hijacking it, right? And they're hijacking and they're sprinkling in all this other BS that doesn't need to be there, right? They're making it their own. They want, like, I don't need anybody standing in front of, I need you to teach history. What I don't need you to do is I don't need you to stand up there and try to convince a room full of white kids that they're evil. I don't need that. I don't, and I don't agree with that. I want you, if you want to teach factual history, teach factual history. If you can document something to be true, document it to be true and properly educate and teach it. I have no problem with that. And anybody that does needs to go back and really check themselves. I think that in theory it's great. The problem is the people that will be administering it want to alter it. And they want to alter it and take it from a conversation to an agenda. And so once you start taking it from a conversation to an agenda, I disagree with it. Even if you think that agenda somehow benefits me as a black man, because it's going to spread white guilt somehow, and it opens up white people to like, oh, I'm sorry, here's my house. I don't know, whatever the thing is they're trying to do. But I don't want any parts of that. I just want factual history taught. I don't have a problem with it until it gets hijacked. You sprinkle in under all this other BS that doesn't need to be there. You steer it off course for your agenda. Then so I get that. And I get why people on the other side are like, screw that. I don't want that in my schools. And I also think that they haven't taken the time to understand what information, like what we've been talking about for the last couple of hours, what information can be relayed. If it was just taught from an educational standpoint, they're just denouncing it because of the agenda that people are trying to put into the schools. So I agree with it, but I don't agree with the administrators of it because I don't like how they've hijacked it and made it into this other thing and still calling it something that doesn't mean to make anyone feel guilty. It just means to teach the history in the country that we need taught. And then the other side, they get to just say, well, nope, screw it, because they are hijacked. They have an agenda, and they do. They have an agenda. So for me, it's one of those, it's so confusing because people took something that could be so simple to discuss and they made it this thing And if you come into that, everybody's like, you know what? Whatever that thing is, just don't do it. It's just don't do it. So I understand why most American people are like, no, I don't want it. And I also understand why a lot of people are like, yeah, it'd be a great thing. But what nobody is holding, they're not holding the school districts and the people that want to put it in the schools accountable for hijacking it and spinning it and turning it into this thing that you want a bunch of individuals to feel guilty about something they didn't do. Now, if you want to educate people on how economic racism in this country has affected America, that's a true thing. Redlining, gentrification. If you want to start talking about like Levittown, that was over in New York and Long Island, what 40s, 50s, maybe in the 50s, where they build the largest suburbs in America, right? The largest suburb in America. It's massive. Look up Levittown anytime you get a chance. It's a massive suburb. And they built these single family homes that ranged back in the day from $7,000 upward to like $10,000, right? Depending on what kind of house you wanted. So $7,000 to $10,000 that a lot of people could afford the mortgage on, right? If they worked hard, blue collar workers could afford it. Well, the designer of Levittown, when he went to the federal government for assistance, right? Which still happens to the day, right? Big companies go to the government for assistance. When he went to the government for assistance, the government said, sure, we'll assist you. But now this is in the 50s or 40s, whenever this thing was built, 40s or 50s. This is then where they said in Levittown, sure, we will help you with federal funding and everything else, and we'll help, you know, back up the loans for the people that need to borrow money. However, in writing, they put, you cannot lease, loan, or sell any of these homes to Black people.
Damn.
Now, why would that be a big deal? Okay, great, guys, get over it. Okay, you can't move in a community. It sucked. Move on. Okay, cool. Now the average home in Levittown goes from $250,000 on up. So imagine the amount of equity that people have. And what could you do with that equity? Could you send your kids to college and they come out of school debt free?
Yeah.
Could you start a business? Could you buy other investment homes? Could you buy other assets that then gain you money? Can you invest that money? Your family now has a legacy, and that the largest suburb ever in American history was literally the federal government, because the designer didn't necessarily build it and say, I don't want Black people to live here. But the federal government said, yeah, we're not giving you this loan or helping you in any way if you allow Black people to move into the suburb. So that's something that is in recent history that does have an economic and financial effect on people, because think about all the families there that did get a financial leg up just off the pure equity that is now in a home they spent $7,000 on. Let's just say even now it goes for 180, right? They have plenty of equity they can pull out. They can do plenty of things with that money and those resources to better their generational conditions of their family, right? So that is an idea of something I don't mind being taught in school. But what you can't do is take that factual information and then spin it somehow and start telling all these, 10-year-olds that, oh yeah, and this is why your mommy and daddy are racist.
Yeah.
What? No, no. So for that reason, I tell every parent, you know what, educate your kids. Just I don't depend on the school system. I depend on them to teach my kids reading and writing. And when it comes to historical context, I educate my children at home.
Well, I mean,
right?
most parents, YouTube and public schools are raising their children. Like if they don't have the, I don't know if it's discipline or the, fortitude, the more, I don't know what it is specifically, but one thing I do want to comment on, though, is that you see how they leveraged money against someone to negatively impact others and to, further their own agenda. And that's why I fucking hate money, the idea of money. And I used to be a money hungry individual that used that income is the barometer of, like what type of person I am. And that's what most people do too, right? And, I also, at the same time, still understand the world that we live in and the system that we live in, and know that I couldn't just be like, man, I just, I'm going to stop making money at all, right? I'm going to completely get out. I wish I could get to that point, but, even if you're like me and you hate money, you still live in the system of which it is running the world. It is corrupt. It is poisonous. It is evil. But It's where we live right now. So, and I also agree with you that as long as you are teaching the truth, the actual truth, factual information, I have no problem with anything being discussed, because I mean, the truth is powerful. Like so yeah. But I just had that question, and my other question is, what are your thoughts on BLM?
Shit. All right. So let me preface that with saying that I am a black man. I have a viewpoint of 42 years living in this country and being alive, and every day, I have no time off from being a black man. There are certain challenges that people just don't understand. They don't get, just like women. I don't understand all the challenges women might go through, right? It's just a thing.
For sure. Yeah.
So I get that, and I appreciate that. And yes, my life does matter. Now, that being said, BLM is full of shit. And this is the reason why. I do not have a political ideology. I don't subscribe to a political ideology because it allows me to remain free, right? And I can call both sides out. Like, I piss people off when I say Trump is anti-gun. He is. Get over it. He flat out is. The dude said skip over due process, take the guns first, ask questions last. He didn't do anything for advancement of our gun rights. He was not pro-gun. Now, you might like him for other reasons, just he wasn't pro-gun. He didn't help us in that way. Yeah. So when I start looking at BLM, I can have the same balance, right? And I can go, okay, cool. I am from St. Louis. BLM started in Ferguson, which is a suburb 10 minutes from St. Louis. Mm-hmm. And what people don't realize is BLM actually originally started off as a group called the Ferguson 100. The Ferguson 100, and they did not start because of the riots. They were established before the Mike Brown situation. Mm-hmm. Ferguson 100 were a group of men, a group of 100 black men that wanted to have a positive impact on our community. They wanted to help out with literacy skills. They wanted to be mentors, and they wanted to help, right? And so it was a group of 100 men that wanted to just help they wanted to just help, right? Essentially is what help and educate. Yeah. So when the Mike Brown situation happened and we have the rise of BLM because of the aftermath, BLM didn't have that name eventually. Ferguson 100 were a group of men that were active in that situation. Well, BLM came along, right? This whole marketing campaign of Soros money, and all these individuals understood that they could hijack this and use it for whatever their agenda may be. And we understand that agenda now is the LGBTQIA+ agenda. However, they understood that hiding behind Black lives was a great shield, right, for their true agenda, right? It was all about strategy. It wasn't about giving a damn about Black lives. So when they came in and they attempted to hijack the Ferguson 100 and turn them into Black Lives Matter, mm-hmm. One of the leaders of the Ferguson 100, a young man by the name of Darren Seals. Darren Seals was like, nope, I don't like what y'all doing. I don't agree with this. We're not having it. You know what happened to Darren Seals?
Let me guess. Lost his job, canceled, dead, suicided, something terrible.
Yeah, he was found with a 45 hole in his head and set on fire. Yeah. So then the rise of BLM came because you got a problem out of your way.
God damn.
So now all of a sudden BLM becomes this big thing. There were 3 original faces of BLM, 1 man and 2 women, and all of them were gay. And then when you go to BLM's website, which I think they finally taken down, but I captured it and put it up on Instagram and talked about it. When you went to their website and went to their about section, Black Lives Matter now, when you went there and you read their about section, was like 4 or 5 paragraphs long, mm-hmm. They never talked about black men. They talked about the advancement of the LGBTQ community and how they were going to promote leaders in the LGBTQ. And I don't have a problem with LGBT community, just don't have behind Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to have an agenda, have that agenda. But they hijacked that movement, and they never even talked about Black lives in their own about section. As a matter of fact, they talked about destroying the Western idea of the nuclear family.
Yep.
Which was the only time they brought up men at all. It was about destroying them, right? Destroying the idea of a man being the leader of a household, having a wife, having kids, and raising his family. And one of the things that my community has always needed is the introduction into fathers back into the life of their kids, right? For dad can do what dads do, which is why I put dads back into the homes. Yeah. So it's like, damn, not only are you not speaking for me, you're going against me.
Yeah.
So the sentiment The speaking of issues, Black Lives Matter. The sentiment, the people, I agree with. The corporate movement,
Yeah.
no, they're my enemy. They have no interest in me. If I am not dead, I serve no purpose. And then if I'm dead, I need to be killed by a white cop. So it's not only do I need to be dead, I need to die a certain way. And if they can't use my death as fuel, because everything that led up to my death is something that fits their agenda, where they can raise money and all this stuff, then they don't care about me. They don't give a damn about my life. They have no interest in my life. They are not vested in my life. The only way that they will look at me right now as a black man and say your life matters is if I say I'm gay. That is the only thing. Then they can go do whatever their agenda is with the gay community. But they have no interest in me as a heterosexual black man that doesn't scream victimhood and cry about everything, and actually is telling people, as a matter of fact, if you believe that white supremacy is on the rise, why don't you have a fucking gun?
Yeah.
So, so they have no interest in me. Black Lives Matter, the corporation, they're zealots. They've never donated any significant amount of money and change back into the black community. They raise billions of dollars, and I haven't seen them do what with it. Anybody? Like where is this money going? I did see the fact that if you clicked, what was it? Black Lives Matter for a minute or something, I forget, it would redirect you to the Joe Biden campaign. Like I did it several times myself. It will redirect you to the Joe Biden campaign. So I'm like, Black Lives Matter, the corporation is aligned with the Democratic Party in a way to fund and fuel them to be used as a Trojan horse into the hearts of America, because you are immediately a racist. If you were to say Black Lives Matter suck, even if you said, hey, the sentiment is cool, but I hate the organization, no matter which way you say it, you're a racist, right? So a lot of people got quiet because they're like, I can't say it, but I can. Right.
Yeah.
But and so all they have to do is ignore me because they understand what I'm telling is the truth, even by their own about section. So Black Lives Matter sucks. The organization sucks. The sentiment is valid. The organization sucks. I give them no support. I don't spend any money. I never bought one of those fucking t-shirts. I will never buy one of those t-shirts. They are evil. They are not for us. They don't like the black man. As a matter of fact, Black Lives Matter told me in their own about section, they want to make sure it is not okay for a black man, a heterosexual, straight black man who is an alpha, who is a leader, who is about prosperity, who is about building his family, who is about fixing the ills of this country. They are telling me I don't matter. So fuck them.
Yeah, they want to eradicate you. And that's why the first word that pops in my head is evil, right? And now I do agree with the sentence, right? Black Lives Matter. I agree with the sentiment. Black Lives Matter. Everything else you just said, fucking spot on. And I'm not sure if you know this, one of those three people that you mentioned, two of them being female, one of them, I'm probably going to butcher the name, was Susan Rosenberg, I think it was, who was originally part of Weather Underground. Weather Underground was a terrorist organization, and she was caught with illegal firearms and I think 400 to 500 pounds of explosives. And they were known for several different bombings. She was actually pardoned by Bill Clinton and, of course, the Democratic Party. She was pardoned by Bill Clinton and appointed to lead that organization. So interesting that another person was suicided so they could move the Ferguson 100 out of their way and start BLM.
Yeah, and their propaganda was trying to tell us that the cops did it. And see, so even then I tell people like that movement doesn't, it was, they tried to spin it because Darren Seals was on the radar of the police because he was an activist, right? And any activist in history, if you are making noise, you will get the attention of the FBI or the local police. Pick an activist. I don't care who it is. Throughout history, you're always going to get the attention, right? So he was getting attention by the police, but the police didn't kill that man. That organization did. So it's one of those things. Now, will we ever prove it? Maybe somebody in 20 years will, be a whistleblower and bring us the truth forward with some evidence. But no, man, this isn't. I'm not going to allow somebody with a great marketing tool to confuse me. I'm not that easily moved. Like, no, you absolutely don't mean me well. So I think that a lot of people, but there's a lot of nuance in that as well. Like when people talk about all the rioting and looting, well, one thing I need people to understand too is at the same time, we seen, like, it's not like we have to guess or we're selling conspiracy theories. We seen, everybody did, seen all these Antifa cats hop out of U-Hauls and all kind of stuff and being dumped into these areas, right, to help cause these riots. Well, I'm like, cool, I understand that Antifa is not in support of the left party. They are not. I know a lot of people believe that the left supports them. Antifa, by their own nature, really don't support leftist ideals, right? That's not something they're with. But the left does support them. But why does the left support them? The left supports them because the left needs more fuel and more people upset. And a lot of Antifa members are millennials or Generation Z. They're younger, right? So they're going to throw them support just like they pretend to care about black people to gain their support, right? So, so even the left party will have you thinking that every single black man and woman is voting Democrat. They just have you believing that. Why? Because those are the people they put on TV. But if you ever get to really talking to people, you're like, yeah, but you keep voting for them. It's like, who the fuck told you that? Who told you that? Right. Yeah. And so they use people and that's fine. I mean, that's strategy. That's what they're going to do. But they also tore up those neighborhoods and they burned stuff down. And there are plenty of videos, and I posted the videos and the photographic evidence of men in those communities, men like me, standing up and saying enough is enough. All right. There were even some rolling 60s Crips in LA that ran Antifa out of there when they were trying to damage it. Like they ran up on them, like, throw another brick and we're going to kill you.
Damn.
Right. Like running them out of there. There was in Louisville, around the Breonna Taylor situation, there was a riot officer that got separated from his squad. There is a half moon of black men in front of a restaurant. The officer's got his back to a wall. There is a half moon of black men that linked arms and surrounded him so nobody could hurt him.
Damn.
And so these are the other stories that we're not telling, because everybody's like, look at Black Lives Matter and look at what the black people are doing to our community. Hey, bro, shut the fuck up. Because what you're not doing is you're not giving credit and credence to men like me that live in those communities that are like, nah, you get your ass up out of here, because we are going to protest. That's my American right. But what you're not going to do, Antifa or whoever the fuck you are, because a lot of people don't even know who they are. What you're not going to, we don't know you. Why are you around here burning shit and blowing stuff up? Why are you around here being the person with the loudest voice? Why are you around here causing all this bullshit? What are you doing? Who are you? Yeah. Right. And so we have to understand that there's a lot of nuance that goes into that. So believe it or not, even if people are marching down the street saying Black Lives Matter, many of them are going for the sentiment. They just want to have a conversation. These other people are hijacking that movement and they're corporizing it, like we just got through discussing, and they are indeed causing chaos, causing confusion, burning shit down, causing destruction. But riddle me this, Batman. If I want to have power over any community, your community, my community, one of the best ways to do that is to own the real estate.
For sure.
Because if I own shit, I can control. So isn't it kind of beneficial of me if the Democratic Party is the party that is running these areas that everybody says? Isn't it really beneficial that when these areas get burnt down, my investor friends get to come in and buy the property at a lower cost and build businesses?
Absolutely.
It's kind of interesting because if you go on West Florissant, which is the main street that you saw in Ferguson now, you don't see new black-owned businesses.
Yeah.
You see corporations. So only thing they gave us to say, hey, look, guys, we love you, is a fucking urban league. Other than that, they put a new hospital there. That Quick Trip that got burnt down built a brand new facility a mile and a half up the road, just in a different suburb technically because it crossed the line. Like they went over there to, it is beneficial of them to see things damaged, because then they get to go in and gentrify the area because they get to buy the property at a lower rate, and the politicians that these corporations have in their pockets get to get a little something off the top. They get to give their friends tax breaks because they can claim to the community that they want to revitalize the area after the tragedy that happened. So they get to tell you, no, we want to do better, after they allow these idiots that they support to come in and at least donate half of the destruction, if you want to call it even, at least donate half of the destruction. So now that their buddies and their rich friends can come in and buy the property dirt cheap and push the community that was there out of the area, all while telling you that your life matters. But what they'll do is they'll push you out the area to live. They'll buy it from under you, and then they'll bring you back as the labor force. But you can't afford to live there, but you can commute in here to work and then get your broke ass away.
Yep. Damn. You nailed it. Yeah, I mean, I had to ask those questions because, you know, I got that feeling just based on some of the conversations, some of the things that you said. And it is exceptionally rare to run into an individual like you. And it's also, I would imagine, challenging for most people to say, like, how, whether white or black, right? How could I disagree with something as, simple as Black Lives Matter? And they did that on purpose. These are fucking experts that are running the shit. And then you go and you look at it, like you mentioned, the property thing, right? Like, they have the biggest companies in the world, like BlackRock, like Vanguard, that are literally purchasing properties all over the United States. And I'm not sure what we're looking at for the future. And I like to be an optimist and say that the future is bright, but I'm also preparing for a future with the lights out. So, but on all that, I want to say amen to everything that you just said, and thank you for coming on, man. Everybody is in here saying one of the best guests that we've ever had on. Thank you for everything. We give the honor to every single guest to name the podcast or name the stream. So you can name this anything that you would like. What would you like to name it?
The truth.
The truth. I love it. Couldn't have said it better myself, my friend. Any parting words or words of wisdom?
Hey, I would like to say thank you for having me on once again. And to your audience, thank you guys for hanging in there and allowing me to share my thoughts with you. I'm sorry I can't interact with you the way I would like to. I've been trying to jump in the chat, but jumping back because this way this phone is set up is weird. But thank you very much for all the commentary. Thank you for the compliments. Best guest ever. I'll take that. I'm gonna wear that crown too, by the way. So fuck it, I own it. So you tell Brandon I said shove it, because now I own the best guest ever. He might have the best hair.
Yeah.
But I definitely own with his pretty ass. But I definitely own best guest ever. No,
I agree. I agree.
I would just like to tell everybody, look, man, having the conversations that are uncomfortable at times is a needed thing. I am not your enemy. Actually, I'm one of the largest proponents of freedom that exists. Right? But we can't pretend. We can't build this beautiful freedom on a false foundation. We have to understand exactly what we're trying to establish. Please stop allowing media, which I love Modger's acronym for media, most effective devil in America. Please.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, please stop allowing the media to confuse you. If there is any other culture in America that you want to learn about, go have a conversation with, and they can't speak for everybody in that culture, but go have a conversation with people from that culture. Find people like me, and that want to have a dialogue and want to discuss things. Be willing to be educated, because the only way that we're going to win freedom, true freedom, is to make sure that everybody has a voice and a seat at that table, and we're all equally viewed as valuable in that conversation. And this is amongst each other. We don't need the fucking government to tell us we can talk, right? This is amongst each other. And once we get that together, and I keep saying the word we for a reason, and I constantly tell people we are the people, but we haven't tapped into our complete energy, because we have allowed them to keep us separate. Even if you don't realize that you're being affected by the media, you are. You're being affected by whatever political side talking points you agree with, you are. You're being affected by those. So really sit down, really do a gut check to yourself, man. You don't owe me, you don't owe anybody. Just do a gut check to yourself and realize how you can open your mind and what attribute you could be to educating freedom. Because I talk about things from my viewpoint in my life doesn't mean I think that your viewpoint is invaluable. Doesn't mean that I don't think that you have anything of value to say. It just means that we all bring our own viewpoint. America is the best country on earth. She's also got her sins, and we all see a different America based off our experiences, right? So let's be good people, good stewards, kind to each other, be willing to listen and learn, get away from the political talking points, have a discussion with each other before, listen to learn instead of listening to respond. Stop trying to have the snarkiest comment online. If you're calling yourself someone who is looking to make America better, maybe try having the most challenging comment online, the most thought-provoking, because all of us that are probably up this late at night listening to a podcast are the current leaders of this country, right? We are the current leaders of this country, or we're one step away from being the current leaders of this country. We need to make sure that we can start having these conversations. So when we're sitting at the dinner table 10 years from now, or one of us is sitting in politics, that they have the information and backing and understanding of our Americans that was not persuaded by media. Stop going for that left-right bullshit. I want to know what my next door neighbor, what my brother over here, what my country brother, what my city brother, I want to know what they're thinking. I don't give a damn about what the media or Tucker Carlson or any of them fucking assholes are telling me. What do you think? I want to have a conversation with you, because at the end of the day, they are all getting rich, famous, and they're getting, marked down in history as being our voices, when all they're doing is keeping us separate. Because once we have a common thread of freedom and we give each other room and tolerance to be who we are and share our experiences, we take the power from them. It's we the people, not them, the government and media. And we need to get back to that, or we need to find that. So that's what I would like to leave people with. Please be willing to absorb, entertain people with a different stance, and hear them out. And don't allow, because, hey, another person that looks like you or has the same political beliefs as you said this one time, so I don't want to hear anything you got to say, because I would tell you, you might not realize it, but you're actually doing freedom a disservice when you have that mentality. So.
Hell yeah. Totally agree. And remember, I always say this, that is why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that is to listen more and speak less. So on that note, thank you, KD. This was literally probably one of the best streams we have ever done, genuinely. And I'm really grateful for your time. And we need to do this again. And one day I'll be out there in Atlanta with you. So I'm excited.
Oh yeah, we're gonna bring you down for Stogies and Straps. We'll introduce you to some of the folks around here. Get out, run some guns, man. We'll have a good time.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys and chat. Thank you. Make sure you check out Kevin Dixie. Shout out one more time where they can get you. It's
the website, if you want to, get some cool merch, like the one, if you go to the website, nootherchoice.com. It's a great show over there. I think everybody will like. It says violence is the problem, accuracy is the solution. Get that. There's also a great shirt over there that I really love. It's at the SBR shirt with an SBR on it that says short but reliable. I mean, hey, maybe you want to tell the world something. I don't know. I thought it was a cool shirt. Short but reliable. We have swag over there. We have different accessories for your firearms, magazines. I got a shit ton of AK mags over there right now. So if you got a Mother Russia weapon platform, get over there, get you some mags. I got some cool stuff for the AR-15 platform too. I got red dots over there. So please jump over to nootherchoice.com. It'd be a great way of helping us out on all your social media platforms, YouTube included. You can find us at The Real NOC. So The Real NOC for No Other Choice. The only difference is on Instagram. That's The Real _NOC. And then be on the lookout for Stogies and Straps, but I'll be promoting that on the platform, so you'll see that stuff. Our community program, if you ever considered helping us feed kids, because we go into a lot of the schools and help out poor and impoverished children, along with mentoring and all the stuff I talked about with Aiming for the Truth. If you want to help out with that mission, that'll be awesome. That's GoFundMe.com/aiming for the truth. And if you want to help me out to continue to bring you content, my goal is to do nothing but go around this country, provide proper education, and fight for freedom. So if you want to help me achieve that goal, I would greatly appreciate it, because it would allow me to take care of my family while also taking care of America. That is patreon.com/NOC for No Other Choice, NOC Firearms. And that will, give me some juice to go out here and challenge these politicians and get into these community events and keep hopping on these planes like I do all the time. Right now, I'm doing it out of my own pocket, which is, we all got families, right? I'm trying to not make the family mad. I got to feed them first. So any assistance would be great, because all I want to do is be a man that changes America. So that's who I am, man. And that's how you can find me.
Hell yeah, man. I just dropped all those links, your YouTube link, your Instagram, all that shit in chat. So guys, hit them up, buy some merch, support them. Anything you can do, it'd be huge, because this 3 hours that we spent together is, it's free entertainment, but it ain't free for him. So support him. Thank you. Subscribe to his channel, all that shit, guys. Thank you all. I appreciate you. KD, you're the man. Let's do this again. And I can't wait to meet you one day in ATL.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And thank you guys in the chat for all your attention, and thank you for having me on your platform, sir. I greatly appreciate it.
Hell yeah. All right, y'all. Y'all take it easy. We're ending the show now. Peace.